to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Nickel buries a three with 1.8 seconds.
Got a chance.
Taken away by Tanner. The heave at the horn. Oh, my goodness. It rolls around the iron. It spits out. And that's how it ends.
All right, that's not how it was supposed to end. I left my house, T-Bone. I was running a little behind on a few things yesterday, so I had a late run that I had to do. So all right, I'll wait until this Mizzou game's over. Get about midway through the second half. It's pretty clear. I don't need to watch the rest of this thing. Mizzou's up by 18. Vandy appeared to be disinterested in most of that game. They're as interested in flagrant fouls as they were in winning. And so I figured I can go ahead and get out on my run now. I'm not going to miss anything. I'll get back, finish up my prep, and I'll be ready to go for the night. I get back home about 30 to 40 minutes later, and I look at my TV, and the game has just ended. Like, as I walk through the door, they are going to the post-game show, right? And so they're showing some of the highlights. And I see, basically, they picked up where I had left off, where Mizzou's up, I think at the time, 21. And then they keep flashing forward, and they show a lot of the stuff that took place afterwards. And I'm like, this is weird. Okay, so Vandy mounted a bit of a comeback here, made it closer than I expected. And then they kept going. And they show the three to get within one. And I'm like, oh my God, there's still a second left on the clock. And then they show the Mark Mitchell pass at the very end of the game, which is intercepted, more or less. And they put up a three, which was inches away from going in and ultimately losing that game for Mizzou. I could not believe the way it came to an end. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. Thank God. All that matters is that Missouri yesterday pulled off one of its biggest wins of the season, did so at home against a very good Vanderbilt team. And T-Bone, this is the kind of win that Missouri needed on its resume. You need to get to 10 SEC wins to feel pretty good about where you're at heading into the SEC tournament and then ultimately to reach the NCAA tournament. The path is now very clear for Mizzou. Beat Oklahoma, beat Mississippi State, you're probably in the NCAA tournament. You can and should win both of those games. There's no guarantees. We've seen this Missouri team all season long. We know they can lose to anybody just as they can beat anybody, as we saw last night. But T-Bone alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. That audio coming back was courtesy of the SEC Network. Appreciate you tuning in today. What did you take from Mizzou's 81-80 win yesterday at home against Vandy?
Well, it's a good thing you don't get style points when it comes to college basketball because, I mean, you're right. That win probably helps kind of solidify or at least give them really put their fate in their hands if they're going to be a tournament team because I'm with you. You win those two games on the road against Oklahoma and Mississippi State, you're probably in. And if you pick up another win against Arkansas or Tennessee, it's probably just a cherry on top. But, man, the reason I said it's a good thing they don't go off of style points because they don't ask how you got those quad one wins. They just ask how many because that would have been an ugly one to put on the resume, nearly blowing that game because Vanderbilt, they said on the broadcast, scored 8 points in the first 8.5 minutes of that second half.
Yeah.
And that's when all of us were, BK said, all right, I'm going for my run. I said I'm going to just kind of mute it on my laptop and focus on the Illini game.
You guys.
Bradford probably was like, I'm out too. They're surely got this. And then you saw Mizzou give up 42 points in the last 11.5 minutes of that second half. So, again, it doesn't matter that you nearly blew that game. You just had to win that basketball game and add it to your resume for your quad one wins. They're closing in on potentially locking themselves into an NCAA tournament appearance.
Let's be clear. There is very little about this team. This has been the case all season that has been aesthetically pleasing.
Agreed.
Okay, Tanner, we understand that. And yet, when you put this team in a position in which you think it can't possibly prevail, at least entering that game, you didn't think you would win that contest. I stopped short yesterday, guys, of predicting an outright victory. I thought it would be a game into the second half. Now, the equation was flipped, in a manner of speaking. But this is the second straight big win that your team has recorded despite a pedestrian game from a Mark Mitchell. What happened again last night? You had other guys stepping up. You had an Anthony Robinson rediscovering a bit of his offensive verve, I would say. T.O. Barrett, to your point yesterday, BK, he was that guy. He was stable in the backcourt, and then some of the other contributions from a Trent Pierce, from Jaden Stone, who's been terrific ever since he re-entered the lineup. A few different things obviously didn't go this team's way. That is putting it mildly. You got out-rebounded again. That is starting to become an issue in conference play. But on the other side of the spectrum, you knocked down almost 80% from the free throw line. You knocked down 50% of your three-point attempts. When this team seemingly has everything going against it, opponent included, it usually finds a way, and specifically at home. It's a different team there.
It's a different team at home. It's a different team when T.O. Barrett plays that way. This team goes as T.O. Barrett goes. He's now their most important player. He's not their best player. He's their most important player, though. He dictated the tempo of that game when things were going well for Mizzou last night. He was the best player on the court. And he was the guy that he could get seemingly anywhere he wanted to. He'd drive to the bucket and then decide what to do with it, whether he's going up for a potential bucket or, more often than not, finding somebody for an open look. And that is something that this team so desperately needed. It's what they weren't getting from Anthony Robinson when he was their lead point guard. He was a guy who would drive to the bucket, and everybody knew he's not going to attack the rim. He's not going to shoot. He's unwilling and unable to shoot. He's scared to shoot. And so instead, they would just sag off of him and be like, all right, well, there's no need for us to collapse at the basket because we know you're not going to attack. You're not going to be somebody that is aggressive. T.O. Barrett is aggressive. He gets to the rim, and he was only 3 for 10 from the field yesterday. He only made 1 2-point shot yesterday. It did not matter because he kept attacking and he got to the free throw line. He went 8 for 9 from the line, ultimately finishing with a second on the team in points, 16 points overall. They so desperately need that. They need somebody that can come through with a consistent 12 to 20 points. He's the guy that can contribute that. You said it was an off night last night for Mark Mitchell. That was the case when it came to his shooting. I thought he actually had a really good night offensively, though. He was somebody that typically you do not expect him to be the distributor, the guy that opens things up for others. He was that last night. He finished with 9 assists.
He did it versus A&M, too.
That is something that he's adding to his game lately. I didn't see it coming. So they're figuring out new ways to get their offense going, especially in the half court. And I kind of like what I'm seeing from them in that area. It was not perfect. It will not be perfect for Mizzou this year because they are a deeply flawed basketball team, and they basically at this point go 5 deep. I mean, last night, Ant Robinson, he was okay. He had his moments. But Jacob Cruz is basically out of the rotation. Nick Randall is almost never a part of this thing. Trent Burns had to give him like 15 minutes last night because of Sean Phillips's foul trouble. But
that's a season high.
He's not somebody you typically expect to be part of the rotation either. They're super thin. When they run into foul trouble, it's a problem for them. And if they have one guy that has an off night offensively, it's going to get ugly for them. So it's still not an easy path to the NCAA tournament, but it is a clear path to what they need to do. Just take care of business against the 2 worst teams on your schedule, and they are very likely to get in. Yesterday was yet another quad 1 win. They now have 4 of them. We were looking this up before the show today. If you're looking outside of the top 25 in the net rankings, there are only 3 teams that have more quad 1 victories than Missouri. The other thing that is helpful on their resume, they have no bad losses.
Yeah.
So they have 4 really good wins and no bad losses, no quad 3 or 4 losses on their resume. That's going to help once you get to Selection Sunday. They won't have a great Ken Palm ranking. I think they're like 50. They won't have a great net ranking as they're closer to 60 in that area as well. But the overall resume, when not looking at the ranking, it's going to look pretty good for Mizzou.
Yeah, and the big key there, as you said, was they don't have that really bad loss that's on their resume. Like Texas, for example, a team that is on the bubble or was on the bubble with Missouri, they've got a quad 3 loss so far this year. Those are the ones that you can't really afford, and especially when you're Missouri and the SEC's having a bit of a down year, on top of the fact that they didn't have a very strong non-con schedule, you can't have a quad 3 or 4 loss, and they're going to avoid that this season, it looks like. So that is one thing that's playing into their favor so far this season.
The one other thing to keep in mind is, and you mentioned this before the show, T-Bone, you will have to keep monitoring some of these other conference tournaments to see if there are teams that surprisingly win their respective tournament. Like for Mizzou, you really want SLU to win the A10.
Yeah.
That would be ideal because then it allows it to be a true, probably one bid league. SLU gets in, and I would guess nobody else does. We'll see on VCU maybe, but otherwise it's going to be a tough road for anybody else to potentially get in there. Same thing is true in some of these other conferences where you need it to be a one bid league in a lot of these areas. You do not want, especially like Big Ten, SEC, you don't want a surprise. You don't want Auburn to win the SEC tournament, right? You don't want somebody that's a 9 or a 10 seed in the Big Ten to win it. Same thing for the Big 12. You don't want your bubble to burst because somebody else is able to come up big with their tournament. On the Illini side of things last night, T-Bone, my God.
Yeah, never sweated that one, boys.
You got to go on a run last night and it wasn't an issue if you wanted to. What's going on? What got into them last night is they had, I think, 27 different guys that were in double figures.
Yeah, they were finally healthy for a change, and you were able to see them. I mean, you mentioned that Missouri can only go about 5 deep right now. Yeah, Illinois, when they're at their best, they're going eight deep. And last night was that for them. This is why I said when they lost back-to-back games against 2 pretty good basketball teams in Michigan State and Wisconsin, I wasn't worried because both those games needed overtime, and they were playing at, like, 80% strength at that point, because I think in the Michigan State game they didn't have Boswell or Stojakovic, I think got hurt in that game, and then they had one comeback against Wisconsin, only had Boswell for Indiana. Last night everybody was back, and you could just see everybody's just slotted now into the spots that they're supposed to be. You had Wagler, who put up only 10 points in the contest. Everybody else was able to pick up the slack while he didn't do much, and Stojakovic looked great coming off of the ankle injury. It just looked like Illinois basketball that we had saw before those 2 losses, where it's clean, crisp ball movement. They take their time, and they're unbelievably efficient on the offensive end of the floor. And now their defense, because they've got all their guards back, they're able to guard on the perimeter a lot better, which they really struggled with when Stojakovic and Boswell were out.
A few notes on Illinois from last night. They are the first team to score 100 points on 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% from the line in a Big Ten game this century. They are the first team with 7 players in double figures in a Big Ten game in the last 15 years. And in the second half, it was the most efficient half of offensive basketball in the 30-year history of Ken Palm's tracking stat.
Historically great on the West Coast.
It was genuinely one of the best offensive games that we've seen in the last 20 years in college basketball.
You said that in the second half, that was when they did that?
I believe so.
Wow, I thought the first half was even better.
Yeah.
That's what's impressive about it.
It was truly an all-time great game by Illinois last night, and it's an all-time great offense. I mean, right now, you look at what they're producing offensively, it would be, I believe, the best offense in the Ken Palm era by efficiency. So it's pretty remarkable what they're doing on that side of the ball. All right, alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's 11:16. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. If you guys would like to watch the show, you can do so at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. You can always get involved as well on the chat, the text line, the Air Comfort Service text line at 314-399-9646. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll be joined by our friend Joey Vitale. We'll get his thoughts on what he's seeing from some of the Blues at the Olympics. But coming up next, earlier today, Chaim Bloom was on with TMA. He gave some interesting thoughts on where Jordan Walker stands with the team. We'll let you hear his thoughts and give you our perspective on Walker's 2026 campaign next year on 101 ESPN.
St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with a First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union.
Take your best shot with First Community, and presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company.
ESPN has your shot to score a 4-pack of tickets to Monster Energy AMA Supercross, returning to the Dome at America's Center Saturday, April 4th. Watch the premier riders in the world as well as the rising stars as they put it all on the line for the coveted title of Supercross Champion. Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live at Monster Energy AMA Supercross.
Get all the info and register to win a free 4-pack of tickets now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Jordan Walker is a guy physically. It's something that's changed about him, man. I think we have the full-grown product. He is the biggest Cardinal to ever wear a uniform, by the way. Seriously, we've never had a Cardinal his size. And just watching him, and it's early, okay? We haven't even played anybody yet, but just watching him and how he seems like he's more dedicated to preparation is a good sign.
That was Claves yesterday on the Fast Lane talking about Jordan Walker and how something's changed with him. Mentally, physically, he looks the part now. We've heard this before, and it hasn't necessarily looked the part. Over the last 2 seasons, he's been one of the least productive players in all of Major League Baseball, hitting .210 and having an OPS below 600. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. T-Bone Claves is not the only one hyping up Jordan Walker. We've also heard this at winter warm-up. He talked himself about some of the changes that he's done with his swing, feeling like he's more athletic, losing about 15 pounds over the offseason. All of these things are positive developments. So Chaim Bloom was asked about this with TMA earlier today. Here's what he had to say about where Jordan Walker stands right now.
This is a really good offseason for him. I think the best offseason he's had in our uniform, both in terms of came to camp in great shape and also had a really good plan this offseason for some of the things that he started to kind of dabble in, so to speak, last year. As far as the swing is concerned, had a really good plan, communicated with us on it, was in touch with our hitting guys, made some meaningful changes. Now, we haven't faced the opposition yet, right? So we'll see what that all looks like. But looking at where he's at mechanically, looking at where he's at approach-wise, that means so much more than what the batting average looks like after 50 at-bats.
So they're excited about what this season could be for Jordan Walker. They have no alternative. They have to be excited about it. He's going to start every day in right field, or most days in right field at least. This is kind of his last chance to really be that for the Cardinals. Eventually, they're going to need to get answers. He's going to get more expensive sooner rather than later. He's going to run out of options to potentially go down to the minors as well. It's time. He is now going to be a 24-year-old player. There's no longer the excuse of, well, he's still very young. He's still very inexperienced. He's still figuring things out. No, it's time for him to be a legitimate big league player at this point in time. It's time to put on your big boy pants. Let's see what you're capable of. Are you allowing yourself to get excited about this, T-Bone?
I'm not, after learning my lesson from last offseason, because I fell for the hype last offseason at winter warm-up when they made the new hitting coach hire. They went to Brant Brown, and Jordan would say all the right things of, boy, we're working on this, and me and Brownie got a good relationship, and we're trying to get back to the old Jordan Walker, and it just didn't work for him last year, and it was all of the same problems, right? He's on the ground too much, and he's chasing after that slider low and away. I'm not going to fall for any hype that comes out of spring training of he's in the best shape of his life, basically, is what they've been saying down there. I got to see it on the baseball field. We're no longer at the point of it's about hype for him. It is about proving himself and proving that he can get back to what he was in his rookie campaign for the Cardinals, where he's 13% above league average. So, no, I've got to see it on the field for him before I'm going to buy in, and I'm going to have the alarm bells going off for a while, right? This is not going to be a he looks good for 2 weeks and I'm willing to buy in. He's going to have to look good for about a month and a half for me to really start to buy in that changes were actually taking place this offseason that are actually going to show themselves on the baseball field.
There's so much to like about his profile. He's big, he's strong, he runs fast, he has a cannon for an arm, he swings the bat as fast as anybody in Major League Baseball. That may sound stupid, but it does matter, and it leads to higher exit velocities, and he hits the ball as hard as anybody. Like, all of these things are tangibles. You can measure them now. We have the ability to see how this impacts performance. The problem is it hasn't led to performance for Jordan Walker because he can't track the baseball. He is a guy that just does not make good swing decisions, and that's the stuff that I don't really think you can train very well in the offseason. It's not easy to train a batter's eye. That is something that is developed over time, or you just innately have it. So I can't allow myself to get overly excited because for all of the stuff that he's doing potentially in the box that will help him once he does make contact with the ball, make better contact with the ball. For all of that stuff that he's doing, I still need to see him make the better swing decisions. And that's something that I will not be able to really evaluate in the spring. It's something that's going to take some time once we get to the regular season to see over time how does it work, because you can get lucky. We saw this for about a month last year. Walker was getting pretty fortunate with his results. I remember diving into the super nerdy numbers and trying to find, all right, what is actually changing for Jordan Walker? And the answer was, man, really not much, just the results. The expected numbers were still basically the same as they were previously. Maybe there were some slight tweaks in what he was doing and the results were following. And maybe that helps with some of the confidence. But beyond that, there wasn't much you could really point at that was tangibly changing for him. And then we saw, all right, well, the results started to revert back to exactly what they were previously. He just got pretty good fortune. The baseball gods were shining down upon him for about 3 weeks. So this year, I'm with you, T-Bone. I need to see 6 weeks of legitimate progress, changes in the process that will lead to me buying in once again. I hope it works out for him. There is nothing that could possibly be better for the Cardinals this year than for Jordan Walker to reach that ceiling that we all know he did have at one point and hopefully still has. But right now, I just can't buy into it. I can't buy into it until I see something that's changed.
Yeah, and two things for me. One, I mean, you mentioned those numbers when we look back on it. July is the month that we're talking about. If you go to Baseball Reference and look at his splits, 304, 373, 435, 807 OPS. That's what he did in July. But when you would take a look at the advanced numbers, like you're saying, it would say nothing much had changed. And most of his power came on a couple of doubles. And the reason the slug was up because it's a smaller sample size in July because you have the All-Star break.
Correct.
So I think what's important, like you said, there's even in that 6-week stretch, even if he is hitting, you've got to see that the underlying numbers are showing it is what Jordan Walker's supposed to look like. This isn't like, and this is no shot towards these guys, but this isn't like Mason Wynn and Dylan Carlson, where when they're playing their best, you would look at like their exit velos, and it'll be blue on Baseball Savant. They're not guys that are going to pulverize the baseball. They're more of those slap-hitting doubles down the line, using their speed to help create some slug as well. Walker's not so much that guy. When Walker is right, he's going to punish the baseball because he swings the bat so hard. So it is about those underlying metrics that should pop off the page when you look at them as well. And the other thing for me that you brought up, and this is why I've been adamant that I'm not sure he's going to figure it out at the big league level. It's his batter's eye. I'm not sure you can really train that when it comes to a big leaguer. I can't think of a guy off the top of my head, and I'd love if the text line could point one out, of a guy that came up to the big leagues. You saw in his career, he did not have a great batter's eye, and then he was able to fix it. Because that's typically something a guy has starting off early in his career, and it just translates when he gets to the big leagues and continues on. Like Matt Carpenter always had a great batter's eye. Lars Nootbaar has always had a great batter's eye. I don't think that is something that you can train. I almost think that is something that is naturally given to you. And if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to stick around in the big leagues because you have to figure out how to read that slider out of the hand in like 0.3 of a second and know, okay, I cannot go chasing after that pitch.
The one thing that I would slightly push back on with that, like I agree, I don't think that you can just suddenly become good batter's eye for taking walks. I do think you can make better swing decisions, though, at times. And if you're able to train that a little bit where you're waiting for your pitch and then you crush it when you get it, that is something that can take form, and the hope would be that allows him to have a lot of success. But I don't know if it's reasonable to expect that out of Jordan Walker at this point in his career, and that's where I do very much agree with you on that. The other thing that I wanted to get to from Chaim Bloom's visit with TMA right now, we'll talk more about some of the other stuff coming up later today. We've gone back and forth, T-Bone, about the value of spring training. And I've always told you, like, listen, 95% of the stuff, I just don't care, especially hitting stats. It does not matter to me. And you'd actually be better off more often than not looking at it at all than trying to get all of that information. Here's Chaim Bloom on what he looks for in spring training.
You know, you talk to anybody who's been in baseball long enough, there's always something you did because of spring training that you end up regretting. I think actually hitting is probably the worst thing to try to assess in spring training, especially if you're looking at results, because it is the easiest time to get fooled. There, you can probably learn a little more. I think about a pitcher when you talk about defense, and especially now as so many more things are measurable and trackable. But hitting is just different. You know, sometimes you're not facing major league pitching, and even when you are, they're not really trying to get you out. They're trying to get their work in. So it is a very different environment, and you really should not put too much stock in spring training results. I do think there are things you can learn from spring training, but I think the worst way to try to learn them is to look at the stat line.
It's good to hear Chaim Bloom's spring training stats don't matter guy.
Oh, no, I don't like it.
I've got an ally. He's the president of Cardinals baseball operations.
Yeah, I think at times they matter. I mean, it was pretty telling last year during spring when you saw Walker wasn't hitting that, okay, he's probably may not figure out this year. And that's what happened. He didn't figure it out. I think it is more of a person-by-person thing. I do agree with that. But I do think at times spring training stats will lay out an outlier for you.
It's just hard to know when that is. That's my thing is like, I agree. There are times where you can look back on it, and with hindsight, you can say, we should have seen it coming. Like at the end of Goldie's career. Maybe we should have seen it coming.
Carpenter
it started
as well.
in spring training, and then it carried over into the regular season. But there were other times where Goldie was amazing in spring training and would be terrible to start off the regular season. And so it's hard to know when is it that we should look into these numbers and use them to suggest this player's no longer good or this player is going to have a great season this year. It's just... I think it's mostly noise. And I think the process stuff, like there were times last year, I think it was Nolan Gorman, where he just looked more athletic. That's something I think you can look at and say, all right, that's a tangible difference, or a pitch that a guy has incorporated into his repertoire. And you can see, all right, what do the results look like with that pitch? Is he having confidence in throwing it? Is it going in for a strike more often than not? That stuff, yeah, it matters to me. Whether a guy hits 250 or 280 in spring training, I just could not care less most of the time. And I'll wait until we see the regular season results to determine whether or not it did matter.
Yeah, I think it's important when you look at the numbers, does it match what the eye test is showing as well? Like with Walker, for example, last year I think he hit 200 in spring training, if I'm not mistaken. But the eye test matched that too, right? Like it wasn't like he was hitting the ball well. He wasn't chasing after pitches. It was, hey, this guy's not hitting. And you use your eye tests in the spring and you go, okay, this guy's clearly behind. Yeah, 161 was what he hit, had a 426 OPS in spring last year. And some would say, okay, well, you can't look at those numbers, but it matched the eye test as well. And I think that's what's important when you get into spring training looking at these guys. Because sometimes, yeah, you're right. Numbers are going to be down for a guy, but you can see that, okay, he looks okay at the plate. He's making contact. He's not chasing. It's just Babbitt's getting the best of him in spring training, and in small sample size, it's going to drive numbers really far up or really far down. But there are some guys that when you watch them, you can go, okay, this doesn't look right. And I think that's the same for on the pitching side as well. I think it was spring training last year where you started to see Fernandez going, okay, he's getting hit a lot harder than normal, which feels a little weird. Maybe it's a blip on the radar, but it's something monitoring. And we saw a month in, he became the biggest storyline here in St. Louis.
Victor Scott hit 350 last year in spring training. Brendan Donovan hit 213. Alec Burleson hit 224. It doesn't matter.
It mattered for Burley. He lost a starting job out of spring training.
Yeah, and then had the best season of anybody of the young guys that were on the roster. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. But coming up next, Joey Vitale here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Tune in all week as the morning after broadcast live from Cardinals spring training in Jupiter, Florida. Tim, Doug, Martin, and Jackson are talking with players and coaches and keeping you up to date on all things Redbirds and Roger Dean Stadium. Don't miss TMA live from spring training all week. Brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. Injury happens, regeneration works. Same-day pain relief at healthcareevolution.com. It's a college basketball doubleheader. Game 1, St. John's and Creighton. Game 2, Houston and Arizona. Coverage starts at 10:30. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Tigers hang on at the horn. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Mizzou narrowly avoided disaster Wednesday night in Columbia. Tyler Tanner's last-second heave rimmed out, sealing an 81-80 win for Dennis Gates and company. MU next travels to Arkansas. Meanwhile, those Razorbacks fall short against Alabama. Crimson Tide 117, Hogs 115. Illinois blitzed USC 101-65. Fourth-ranked Arizona bouncing back versus BYU 75-68. Olympic women's hockey Team USA will face Canada roughly 30 minutes from now. Tomorrow's men's slate includes U.S., Slovakia, plus Canada, Finland. Sidney Crosby did not participate as John Cooper's group practiced earlier this morning. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're talking everything St. Louis Blues as we head into the Blues booth on 101 ESPN. Presented by Boardwalk Hardwood Floors. Find your perfect new floor at boardwalkhardwood.com.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues analyst for both FanDuel Sports Midwest and, of course, 101 ESPN. He's Joey Vitale joining us here on the show. Joe, appreciate the time as always. How you doing today?
Joey!
Going for gold. He's going for gold. It's Joey Vitale. That's kind of weak sauce from us.
How are we doing? Bradford bringing the heat on the Joey chant. Love it, dude. Way to bring the heat without the great Alex Ferrara.
How you doing, Joe?
BK, doing great, buddy. How are you today?
We're doing really well. We made it through a week at Disney World with a 2-year-old, so I feel like I can accomplish all things at this point.
You can do it all. How was it?
It was good. It was mostly really great. As you know, as somebody that goes to Disney World relatively regularly as well, there were moments where, you're tested. And we came through the other side, and that's all that matters.
That's right, baby. That's right. The obstacle is the way. There's going to be breakdowns. You eat it. You swallow it. You smile. You put on the Mickey ears, and you just keep driving. That's awesome.
We had a few moments that were surprising. Our son has now become a swinger. He has decided he's going to hockey fight all the time, especially when he's mad now. So that kind of came out of nowhere. It was not something we had dealt with prior to Disney World, and then suddenly he was a scratcher and a fighter. So that was something we had to work through.
Yeah, I mean, like I told you before your trip, if you're not cheating, you're trying. You got to fight your way. You got to nudge. You got to nudge your way when you're in Disney. But when he starts swinging, that's as you know, any good married couple will tell you. Whenever the kids start misbehaving, you just look at your wife and you just say, "Honey, that's all you. That is your side. That is your dad, or that is your mom." And then usually a good 2 to 3 day fight starts.
Yeah, it's wonderful. All right, let's get into this. The Olympics have been amazing, Joe. The storylines have been fantastic. Yesterday, the big storyline, especially that's come out that's relevant locally, was Jordan Binnington coming up big once again. I saw a piece over in The Athletic where seemingly every player on Team Canada was like, yeah, that's just kind of what he does. He's big game Binner, and we're not at all surprised that he came through in the biggest possible moments. What was your perspective on what you saw yesterday from Jordan Binnington in that game for Team Canada?
Yeah, not surprising, and when you allow 3 goals, it's really just a big moment, needing that save at the right time, and this is what I was on TMA a couple weeks ago when they were talking about Binnington, and I told them that John Cooper took him out to coffee in January when Tampa was in town, and he said that he's his guy, and you heard Cooper's comments after Game 1. He's like, I made the decision that Jordan was our guy 305 days ago, and it's all true. Because, there's so much. Listen, we're 2026, and there's numbers and there's analytics for everything. But you just can't measure certain things. And you can't measure someone's temperature when the game gets going. And you can't measure how someone arrives and shows up in a moment when you really need it. because to me, numbers don't show anything about that. That's, on the flip side, not to get distracted here, but that kind of what makes you nervous about Connor Hellebuck. I know Connor has done very well in this tournament. President's Trophy last year. He's a goaltender that got yanked in every single game. If you go back to that game, round one, last year against the St. Louis Blues. So that's been the knock on Connor. It's almost been the opposite of Binnington. Connor's got incredible numbers, but when that push comes to shove, he hasn't really won that big game. Jake Ottinger for USA, same thing. He's had great numbers in Dallas. They've gone the distance quite a bit, but he hasn't gotten the job done. So there is this kind of looming thing with Jordan that you just can't put your finger on, and it's just when the game's on the line, he wants the ball. When the game's on the line, he wants the net. And certainly that held true yesterday. The Palat breakaway save, moments before the goal, he makes another save with someone coming right down the guts of the ice. So he shows up in those big moments. And like I said, there's really no surprise for people like you and me, BK. We watch this guy on a daily basis. I think there's probably a lot of more surprise around the world, especially for people that don't see him as much as we do.
And Joe, for me, all these Blues that are over at the Olympics, they're all putting together a really good tournament. Dvorsky had 6 points so far for Slovakia. You've got Pusuter had a couple of goals in the tournament. We've talked about big game Benner. Pareko's look good. Broberg's look good for Team Sweden. And yet it makes it even more puzzling as to what happened here in St. Louis with the Blues, where I mentioned those 5 or 6 guys, and they're all playing great in the best-on-best tournament this year. And then you look at the Blues, and they're second to last in the standings here in the NHL. It's just so puzzling, and it adds to what's a confounding season for them.
It's frustrating, BK. I'm sorry, Tanner. It's extremely frustrating because you look at the talent that the team has, and they just haven't been able to put it together. And I think that's what leads Doug Armstrong's frustration. When he uses the word, embarrassing at times of how they're playing. When you look at, we had him on the broadcast about 4 weeks ago. He was on us during the second period. It was a period where they scored 3 goals, and he said, the frustrating part is, this is what we think we have, and we're just not finding it consistently enough. So to me, you're loving how individually all these players are performing. It really kind of highlights something. Well, it's not coming together as a team. In 2019, that group, they had the pieces. It just that as a team, they weren't coming together for some reason, and then it flipped. And I think to me, this is a positive moving forward, that you have the caliber of players that can get the job done. It is just a matter of maybe a tweak here, a tweak there. Maybe you bring in someone that could add some chemistry that can really become a glue in the offensive group or the back end. Whatever it is, the talent is there. The group has got enough eliteness, certainly, to make a much deeper push than they're making right now. And I would imagine that, Tanner, like your frustration, it's probably got Doug Armstrong a little frustrated there as well, as you're seeing these guys really light it up. But at the same time, you applaud them, and you really appreciate what this means, not only for them in this tournament, but ultimately what this is going to mean for them as they come back home, especially a young player like Dalibor Dvorsky, as you mentioned, a point-munching son of a gun right now over there, and he's continuing to perform very well on a big stage, and that's just going to make his confidence soar. I thought Philip Broberg had a great tournament before they got booted there the other day. So, you look at the young guys, this is all you want for them. You want them to continue to propel and excel. The one young guy I'm a little nervous about, because we haven't played the Sharks a whole lot this year, is that doggone Macklin Celebrini, who now 5 goals. And remember, this was a player that was penciled in on the outside to start the year, and Doug Armstrong saw enough, put him on the team. And, of course, now he is just running away with it. So a world-class player, the face of the future of the NHL, as Connor McDavid one day gets closer and closer to retirement, as he's got a long way to go still. But with Macklin Celebrini, just another young kid, you just have to be so impressed with what he's doing.
Joe, last question that I've got for you. We're talking to Joey Vitale here on 101 ESPN. Tomorrow, the tournament continues with Canada versus Finland and Slovakia versus the U.S. If you had to prognosticate where you think this is heading, what do you think we'll see for the gold medal game, and who do you have coming out on top of this one?
Well, I have no idea what the hell prognosticate means, but
if you had to predict,
I'm guessing you're saying you just got to say predict with me, BK. You know me well enough by now.
I apologize. That's on me, not on you, Joe.
It sounds like I was going to get my prostate checked or something. I don't really know what that means. Anyway, if I had a prediction, listen. Yesterday, I'm watching these games, and you're seeing Canada behind. I think the world was rooting for Czechia, right? In some ways, yes, you would hope it for David Pastrnak and those guys, but I think you want the best against the best. and you're kind of in some ways happy that Canada moves forward. It does make USA's chances a lot tougher now that Canada did figure it out there at the very end. But I'm hoping for a USA-Canada finish. But keep an eye on those Finns. I mean, another team that kind of sneaked away with one yesterday. I thought they looked very strong in the tournament. I'm surprised that they had such a tough time in the quarters yesterday. But again, some late-minute heroics lead to another overtime victory and just some fantastic hockey games yesterday. So, I mean, it's interesting. If you're USA, you got that late game, and you're watching Canada almost get bounced. You're watching the Finns losing, and you're thinking, geez, we may advance to the semifinals without Canada and Finland and even Sweden who lost. You're like, wow, we could. I mean, this is a medal, at least a medal, maybe even gold. And then, like I said, the late-minute heroics from both those squads kind of put things back in perspective for the USA. But I'm hoping for a USA-Canada final. I think the world is outside of the other two countries that you represented in Slovakia and Finland. And I think it'll be hopefully everything that the Four Nations Championship was last year with all the physicality, the emotions involved too. So either way, we're looking forward to it. And you're certainly hoping, obviously a good boy from St. Louis, Missouri, I'm hoping for USA all the way.
Each of the last 4 hockey games in the Olympics have gone to overtime, including today's game between Switzerland and Sweden on the women's side of things for the bronze medal. Canada versus the U.S. on the women's side coming up here in just about 20 minutes. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week as the Blues get back in action.
Sounds good, boys. You guys have a great week now.
Same to you. That's Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Sincerely appreciate his time as always. Blues just about a week away from kicking things off for the second half of their season with a game against the Seattle Kraken. By the way, they have taken the ice for morning skate today, and their lineup includes Holloway with Shin and Snuggerud, Neighbors with Booch at center, and Kyrou on the other side of the wing. Torpo, Finley, and Walker is your de facto fourth line. Defensive pairings include Tucker with Falk, Fowler with Mayu, and of course Hofer in net. That's what they've got today out on the ice. Blues back in action next week. Still no Thomas and no Sonny on the ice today, which was expected. It sounds like maybe if you're going to get one of those two guys back, it would be Thomas, and it sounds as though he is expected to practice at some point next week. We'll see if he's good to go, though, starting up as this team gets back on the ice. Coming up in 15 minutes, Lars Nootbaar finally spoke about his recovery and what comes next. We'll give you our thoughts on that coming up in about 15 minutes. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
Missed the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with the voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle, shop Bellman in Troy. Online at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman.
Ready to ramp up the excitement, golf fans? BetMGM is making your next golf tournament winner bets even better with Second Chance. What's Second Chance? Ever bet on your favorite golfer to win a tournament only to see them miss the green? Well, with BetMGM's Second Chance promotion, you'll get your stake back in cash if your tournament winner bet finishes in second instead. That's right. Simply bet on any player to win a scheduled golf tournament during a promotional week. If you're right, you win. But if your pick finishes in second instead of first, you get your stake back in cash. Watch your favorite players go for the win all season long and bet knowing you'll get your stake back if they finish second. BetMGM and GameSense reminds you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Missouri only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards paid back in unrestricted withdrawable funds. Please play responsibly.
the picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the text line. We'll answer them here on BK and Ferrario. From WJ Jetherholt? I'm not sure. How would you, some of these TMA names, I don't know. How would you guys feel if USA and Canada played each other in the bronze medal game and Dvorsky were to help Slovakia win the gold?
I think it would be a breakout moment for Dvorsky that would help put him on the scene a little bit here in the stateside. Now, I think he needs to do that almost against a team like the U.S. or Canada. So I almost think he'd almost have to have the better game against the U.S. in this scenario tomorrow than in the gold medal game against the Finns, because more people will be more locked in when it's between the U.S. and Canada. But I think it'd be a huge moment for him. I think it'd be a huge disappointment if you're someone that works at NBC and that cares about ratings, because U.S.-Canada is what everybody wants for the gold medal game, not the bronze for the person that just gets that opportunity to be at the back end of the podium.
Yeah, I think it'd be disappointing as a hockey fan.
Yeah.
If I'm just being candid. I want to see the U.S. versus Canada for the gold. That's what we've all been waiting for throughout this entire tournament, is for that crescendo at the very end of this tournament. So I think it'd be disappointing in that regard. I think it'd be great for a guy like Dalibor Dvorsky, but beyond that, that's pretty much it. It's just a local storyline more than anything else.
Individually, it would be awesome, right? But you touched upon it. This sequel has the potential to actually top what we saw last year, the original, right? Four nations face-off. We've been waiting essentially a year for this, Canada-U.S. in the making. To not have those two Titans go head-to-head, that would be more than mildly disappointing.
From the 314, are you guys personally planning to go on too many Cardinals games this year, or do you plan on watching the rebuild from afar?
I'm assuming that I will be down there at least once a homestand, probably, as a press member, credentialed, but as like going to the ballpark as a fan, like for example, me and my dad would go to about last couple of years, anywhere between 5 to 10 games. I can already tell you we're not going to be doing that as much this year, but as a press member, I plan to get down there a decent amount still.
I'll probably be at more games because it's cheaper. If you just want me to be honest. The price to enter will be almost certainly cheaper this year. I would imagine they're going to run a ton of promos this year. I would bet, like last year, you had the $5 beers up in the Budweiser Terrace. They're probably going to do more stuff like that to get fans in the stands and then to make more money once you're there. So I will probably attend more baseball games this year because I view it as a social event as much as a taking in the baseball. I'm more locked in on the baseball game when I'm at home than I am when I'm in the crowd at a baseball game, because I am just watching the whole thing when I'm at home. Whereas when I'm at the baseball game, I'm doing other stuff, especially when I go with my son. I'm going out and grabbing a beer, or I'm going with him, walking around, trying to find Fred Bird, all different kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'll probably be at more games this year than I have been in the past.
See, that's funny. I'm the opposite, but I think it's mostly because I don't have a kid with me, which makes it easier for me to focus on the game when I'm there in attendance. But I actually find myself get distracted a lot easier when I'm at home, right? Because then I'm more distracted with looking at my phone, or I'm cooking dinner maybe while the game's going on. If I'm going to a baseball game, I'm either eating there, or more likely I've probably already ate. So I go to the game. I actually sit there and I actually love, and I'm more into it and connected to it and talking the strategy of the game and what's going on, especially when I'm there with my dad. Meanwhile, I'm at home. I typically get distracted. Next thing I know, I'm on Instagram Reels while, someone's getting lit up by the Cardinals.
You're into the old school scoring, aren't you?
Oh, I do. Yeah. I do a scorecard. BK's with me when we're in the press box. They have the scorecards. I do a scorecard every time I'm at the ballpark.
Love it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, guys, as injuries happen throughout the season, would you prefer the Cardinals to roll with the older, less upside players like Fermin and Pozo, or call up younger prospects who might not be ready, such as Baez? I would much rather them go with the older, less upside players if the young player's not ready. there's no reason to rush or the progress or to stunt the progress of a young player just to appease your fan base or just to try to get them a taste of the big leagues. If they're ready, yeah, absolutely, put them in there. I'd much rather see that. But if you're just doing it to do it, no, yeah, go with the older guy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Go to the waiver wire.
If you have an injury and Baez isn't ready yet, you shouldn't rush him to the big leagues because that's how you screw the development of a player up. And that's what they're trying to avoid. That's the things that they don't want to do that they may have been doing under John Mozeliak. So, yeah, I'm with you. If someone goes down in the first month of the season, yeah, okay, Fermin's going to get an opportunity. Pozo's going to get more of an opportunity, and I'm fine with that. I'm not calling anybody up until I know they are ready for the big leagues.
From the 618, Stenberg not in the lineup for Springfield. Do we expect him to be up once the roster freeze is lifted? That would be my expectation.
Yeah, I expect as long as he's healthy, he's going to be up here, but I think he's healthy, so I would expect he's back with the Blues.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, do you think that Jordan Walker could end up taking a similar career path to Joe Adele? It took him a while to come around. He's finally starting to live up to his potential. It seems like a similar situation to me. Joe Adele's interesting. He was always a guy that was highly touted, similar to Jordan Walker. He did really struggle early in his major league career. He started to stabilize a couple of years ago. It wasn't anything overly exciting, but you know, he finally started hitting for a little bit more power. He didn't really become a good player until he was 26 years old, so that'd be like 2 more years of this for Jordan Walker. I think that'd be disappointing if that's the case, but is it possible? Sure. Yeah, it's possible. He hit 37 home runs last year.
He was great last year.
Joe Adele. He didn't hit for any average. He did not get on base. He still struck out a decent amount, but the power was there, and that was enough.
And he must not be that great a defender. He's at only a 1.2 WAR with 37 home runs, which means his defense probably wasn't very good.
He's a one-trick pony. He hits for power.
It's possible that Walker takes that path. I think it's very unlikely because there's very few guys that do what Joe Adele did, which is you're not a good baseball player, not a good baseball player, not a good baseball, not a good baseball player for about 5 years, and then all of a sudden it all clicks. Typically, these guys, it just never clicks for. So can he do it? Maybe. I would bet against it, though. I'm not sure he's going to be able to figure it out.
From the 618, guys, I hope the new GM stays as open and honest as he was today on TMA. I thought Chaim Bloom was great on TMA earlier today, and it's no different than what he's been basically the entire time that we've heard from him starting this offseason. He's open. He will answer the question that is asked, and if he doesn't have the answer at the time, he'll try to get back with you. Yeah, it's been refreshing to hear the way that Chaim Bloom addresses not only the media, but you guys, the fans. When he's talking to the media, what he's really doing is addressing you. That's his way to talk with you guys. So I think it's been great.
Yeah, I think it's been great, and I give him credit for doing it. We'll see what he's like when they get back into whatever their next winning window is, because as we've seen, GMs and Pobos love to talk when they're rebuilding. Army came out and started talking a hell of a lot more when they were going into this retool. They were expected to win this year. They haven't been very good, and you haven't heard from Army at all.
We did hear, though, like when he was in Boston, he was the same way. I've talked to people that are there, and some of them didn't like the moves that he made, but behind the scenes, he was always open, and he was available. So I don't expect that to change. I do think we are in the middle of a honeymoon period, though.
Agreed.
Like, it's easy to like what he's saying right now when there's almost no real downside to what he's doing. Once the losses start to pile up, and certainly when this takes more than a year and you hear the same thing next year, or it starts to be like, okay, when are we going to start signing the good players, though? That will eventually change, and people will become more and more frustrated with some of the phrasings that he has, because as time goes on, you start to pick up on, all right, he's saying the same thing that we heard last year. Well, yeah, that's his honest-to-God opinion on the matter. It's not going to change. But right now you are in a bit of a honeymoon period, which is right after John Mozeliak, which people were done with.
Yeah.
And also they're going in the direction that I think a lot of Cardinals fans wanted them to go in anyways.
Yeah, and especially I think if they somewhat overperform whatever some people's expectations are, right? I mean, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. You can have a different degree on what you think would be what would be reaching expectations and what would be kind of going over the top of that. So if they win, 78 games this year, some people would say, okay, yeah, you still continue the rebuild. Some people would see that and go, Okay, well, now that means it's time to push, right? If you get to 78 wins, that means a couple things went right. Now you should push. And if Heim is saying going into next offseason, hey, we got to stick with our plan, right? We're still kind of in a rebuild, or we're still building. We need to stick with our plan. That's when you really start to see that pressure get towards Heim Bloom. I'm 100% with you.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll talk a little bit about what Jordan Binnington was able to do yesterday in the Olympics. At 12:30, we're going to play a game of Beat the Blues. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved. If you want to be a part of Beat the Blues today, you'll go up against Philip Broberg. The winner will go home with a signed hockey puck by Philip Broberg and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders coming up on March the 10th. If you would like to go up against Broberg today, you think you can beat the Blues, text in right now, 314-399-9646. All you have to do is say, I can beat the Blues. We'll pick a few of you at random to go up against Broberg, and when you do, you'll have an opportunity to win those tickets and the puck signed by Philip Broberg. Coming up next, Lars Nootbaar finally spoke out about his recovery and what comes next for him. What did we take away from what he had to say yesterday, and why he's still a member of the St. Louis Cardinals? Tell you next here on 101 ESPN.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. And the latest episode has us turning our attention towards a period of history that barely needs exaggeration. The earliest days of the automobile. It's incredible how history itself can feel unbelievable once you strip away the myths and look at what actually happened. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we dig in on the chaotic, experimental era of the invention of the car. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts, locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So Lars Nootbaar yesterday spoke with reporters down in Jupiter as he has officially arrived at Cardinal spring training. He was a little late, not because he just didn't want to get there on time, but because he's using this specific technology as part of his rehab plan. It includes a treadmill that changes the gravity while he's running to be basically there's less impact on his feet as he's trying to come back from this Haglund's deformity injury that he got surgically repaired this offseason. They didn't have that at the Cardinals camp. So they had to get one shipped in, and it took a couple of days. So he's now in camp. He's kind of going through, hanging out, showing face, doing everything that he can while he's still limited coming off of this surgery. And he spoke for quite a while yesterday with reporters about the injury, how it impacted him over the last couple of years, and why he thinks getting this surgery now will ultimately help him not only with baseball, but with life. Because he was having issues just walking around. Going upstairs was becoming problematic for Nootbaar because of some of the issues that he was dealing with there. So, T-Bone, Noot's an interesting case here. He came in with so much promise. And he's always been a good on-base player, basically up until last season. Mm-hmm. But the batting average is not something that's overly high. He doesn't have these great slugging percentage numbers. It's basically just high on base, lots of walks, solid defender, and up until the last couple of years, good defense, good base runner, all of these different things. So a well-rounded player that doesn't have some of the traditional metrics that you would typically look for. You dive into the numbers a little bit, and now that we know what's been bothering him, it is a little easier to explain. His sprint speed has gone down significantly over the last couple of years. He went from top third in Major League Baseball in terms of his speed to below average in sprint speed. You look at his arm, and it went from a really good, very strong arm to one of the worst in Major League Baseball. That could be due to his base. It could have something to do with his inability to get his legs into his throws. You look at some of the numbers on what he was doing offensively. He wasn't hitting the ball as hard this past season. He wasn't connecting as often. And when he wasn't impacting the baseball as hard. All of this, again, with what we know now, hindsight being 2020, could be related to the feet issues. We've seen this with other guys around the league as well. He now believes he's had that corrected. We'll see. I have no idea what he's going to come back from this like. I don't think the Cardinals know because there's so little track record of baseball players getting this kind of a surgery, much less getting it on both feet. T-Bone, are you allowing yourself to dream on Lars Nootbaar getting back to the player that he once was?
I am. I am hopeful on Lars getting back to being that guy because as we've talked about, I mean, you mentioned it, when he's right, gets on base at a good clip and he's got some decent pop and is a above average defender out in the corners. And we'll see if this was what was impacting his arm as well. I am hopeful on Lars Nootbaar because I've seen him do it in the past, and it's what makes me think that hopefully now that this is taken care of, he can bounce back and get back to being the player that he was in the last couple of seasons prior to last year. There is some of that intrusive thought that worries a little bit about the fact that anytime you start talking about feet injuries, we've seen how it can derail careers. I mean, look at Alan Craig. He's a perfect example of this. Dealt with a foot injury and never was the same guy. But I'm going to remain hopeful on Lars Nootbaar and hope that he's able to bounce back and is able to bring some interesting conversations forward for the St. Louis Cardinals to where if he does bounce back, a conversation will be had of, does this guy belong in the core or do we trade him at the trade deadline? Because he would carry significant value if he gets back to being who he was. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that he can get back to being the guy he was.
Okay, let's say he does. Let's... Couple of years ago, he was a guy that hit 260, got on base 36% of the time, hit 15 homers in 115 games, was just all around a good baseball player. Added value on the base paths, was a good defender, did a little bit of everything, 10 stolen bases as well. Let's say that's what he is. He's a 15 to 20 homer guy, 15 to 20 stolen base guy, hits about 260, gets on base again, looks like a legit leadoff hitter for the Cardinals for now and potentially for years to come. Is that a member of your core?
I don't think so. I lean towards no. And the reason is, one, I think he's a complimentary piece. So I don't view those guys as core pieces. Those are guys that you hope you can replace internally or externally when you're back to your winning ways. And he's going to be 28 this season. And when I envision the Cardinals core, I'm thinking like J.J. Weatherholt, right? Early 20s is what I think they're looking for right now. Early to mid-20s, and he's starting to get closer to 30. And by the time you're winning again, he's probably going to be about 30 years old. So I lean no, but I will say this. I actually think him being a part of the core moving forward is not just tied into his performance. I think it's tied into what Walker does. Because I look at the outfield right now, and I think even if Scott doesn't hit, I think they might pencil him in as a core piece in center field because of his glove, and they still seem to be wanting to be very strong defensively up the middle. But if Walker hits, or doesn't hit, you've got potentially his replacement internally in Joshua Baez at some point, maybe this year or maybe next year, as long as he continues his development like you saw last year. So then you can replace him there. And then you can maybe keep Nootbaar in left field. But if Walker hits, I still think they want to make a plan for Joshua Baez. If Walker gets back to the guy that he was, I think they may look at Nootbaar and say, this guy's going to carry significant value on the market as a left-handed outfield bat that's above average defender that can be about 10 to 15% above league average with a little bit pop. We can trade him and get some assets and still clear up a spot for Baez moving forward. So I think he kind of is tied into what Jordan Walker does this season to see if he's going to be a part of the core if he gets back to who he was.
Just don't see a scenario where he can be. His age tied in with his contract status, it's hard for me to imagine how they keep him here long term. Because if he gets back to the player that he once was, he's going to be expensive. Even in arbitration, he'll be about $10 million next year. And that's just the starting point. And that's the final year of his entry-level contract. Then he becomes an unrestricted free agent at the age of 30. So are the Cardinals going to extend a guy into his mid-30s at $15 to $20 million a year and have him be a part of this core? I don't think it would make sense to do that, really, for him.
I think if you think you're getting back to your winning window sooner rather than later,
better be good quick.
I think, and I think that's a caveat in this too. Is that that's what I'm assuming is that they're getting better quickly. If that's the case, I think you can make the argument for it because at some point you've got to keep bodies.
Why not keep Donnie?
Because I'm not sure. Because I think with Donovan, I think they looked at him. He was getting closer to free agency than Nootbaar by a year, and I think the hope was that we can still get his value. At this point, they were truly just trying to continue adding pieces to the pipeline right now. If Weatherholt hits and you've got this pitching pipeline kind of figured out along with some of these position players, I think you can make an argument to keep Lars Nootbaar. I think at some point you have to start keeping guys rather than trading them. Otherwise, you become like the Pittsburgh Pirates, where you just go through close to the process and move on from it. At some point, you got to keep somebody, and they don't have many outfield options internally.
Donnie isn't a year ahead of him, though, on contract. They both have 1 year left. They're in the exact same spot contract-wise. Like, Donnie has $5.8 million this year. He's got 1 year left in arbitration. Then he's a free agent at the age of 31. Nootbaar has $5.2 million this year, arbitration next year. Then he's a free agent. I think that if you have a bounce-back campaign for Lars Nootbaar, he's going to have real value at this year's trade deadline. I mean, it could be maybe not to the same degree as Donnie because he's not as consistent. He does have more injury stuff that he's dealt with that's more significant than what Donnie has. But there's going to be real value in a guy like that at the trade market. So I think they would just take advantage of the value that he presents there. Go ahead and trade him this year at the trade deadline, get that value back in return, and then try to figure out the outfield, whether that's trading elsewhere or signing somebody. But I think they look at getting younger, getting potentially cheaper, and seeing what it looks like in that way. I don't envision a scenario in which he can work his way into this core. I don't think he makes sense timeline-wise for where they're at, because once you get to the age of 30 or so, you start getting on the decline, especially a player that ages the way that he is. I don't think he's going to make sense for them to add to the core, unfortunately. I think he knows it. He talked yesterday and said, listen, it made sense for me. It made sense for the Cardinals for me to get this done now, so that way I can have more value to them on the baseball field and maybe via trade. He kind of knows. Like I think he knows his future is not here in St. Louis. I think his future is I'm going to play as well as possible, kind of similar to Arenado a year ago, to get an opportunity to play for a contender. And that's the one way that he can earn his way onto a contender is via trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. Like, I'm open to doing it. It's why I said originally I lean towards he's probably not here. I just think he can still potentially play his way in there because at some point you're going to have to keep bodies in this rebuild. Otherwise, again, you just continue to cycle through guys. And I think what made it a little easier on Donovan was you had a clear replacement already internally for what you wanted out of that position at second. It was J.J. Weatherholt. Now, you can make the argument at third base. I totally would get that one. Since you've only got Gorman and Sajaci there. I just look at their outfield and I go, I don't know where their answers are coming if you're moving on from Nootbaar. Now, maybe that becomes clear after we see the drafts, right? Maybe they take an outfielder that's playing in the SEC this summer and you look at him and go, okay, well, that guy will be here in 2 years, and it gets a little bit more obvious. But Nootbaar's the kind of guy that if he continues to play well, yes, his value will go up a little bit. I don't think he's getting what Donovan said. I agree with you there. At some point, though, you've got to start picking and choosing guys that need to stay a part of this. And I think it's okay to have one guy that's creeping towards his 30s in that core.
I would just say those guys are Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson and Ivan Herrera, J.J. Weatherholt. I think they have kind of picked, at least right now, who they're expecting to be those players. I don't think they yet have an outfielder that they're building around for the future. I think they would like it to be Victor Scott. I think he's set up to be one of those players potentially. But as of today, I don't think that the future Cardinals outfield is yet in place. And it's going to take some time before we figure out who those players are. I'm not even sure that they're in the organization just yet. Maybe Chase Davis could be that guy. Maybe Baez could be that guy. I have no idea. So it's going to take a little bit of time. And I think that's why you're seeing them try Thomas Sajaci in the outfield. Today, apparently, Cesar Prieto was getting some opportunities out there. You're seeing Jose Fermin get opportunities out there. They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. This outfield has been an issue for them for basically a decade. And this year, I don't think is going to be any different.
That there screams they're making sure they at least have a backup plan.
Yep.
Now, those also aren't answers to the outfield. Prado and Sajaci are not answers to your outfield in the long term. But that is, if these guys flame out or fail or deal with injury, we can't play a baseball game without a left fielder, and that's what they're doing there.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of Beat the Blues. You're going up today against Philip Broberg for a signed hockey puck by Philip Broberg and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders on March the 10th. Coming up next, Jordan Binnington doing exactly what we all suspected he may do in the Olympics. How have his teammates responded to it? We'll give you some of the reaction next year on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 1987, the Blues would put 6 up on the Minnesota North Stars. They'd score the first 5 goals of the hockey game. Greg Paslowski, Mark Hunter with 2, and Cliff Ronning with 2 to give the Blues a 5-0 lead. Minnesota would score the next, but then Greg Paslowski would give the Blues the 6th goal of the hockey game.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
Ready to ramp up the excitement, golf fans? BetMGM is making your next golf tournament winner bets even better with Second Chance. What's Second Chance? Ever bet on your favorite golfer to win a tournament, only to see them miss the green? Well, with BetMGM's Second Chance promotion, you'll get your stake back in cash if your tournament winner bet finishes in second instead. That's right. Simply bet on any player to win a scheduled golf tournament during a promotional week. If you're right, you win. But if your pick finishes in second instead of first, you get your stake back in cash. Watch your favorite players go for the win all season long and bet knowing you'll get your stake back if they finish second. BetMGM and GameSense reminds you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only, Missouri only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards paid back in unrestricted withdrawable funds. Please play responsibly.
is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Jordan Binnington yesterday made some huge saves down the stretch in order to propel Team Canada to the semifinals in the Olympics. And earlier today, I was reading from Mark Lazarus's piece over on The Athletic. And T-Bone, he talks to a bunch of the different players that were a part of this thing for Team Canada. And they all had basically the same reaction. No surprise. No surprise whatsoever that Jordan Binnington came up big in a big moment. Here are a few of the quotes that I think were relevant from this piece from some of his teammates. From Brandon Hagel, quote, "He's a gamer. We knew that from the Four Nations. It's not just a one and done. When big games come around, Jordan Binnington comes around." There were more. Tom Wilson said, quote, "I love that guy. He's a gamer. We're confident in him coming up in that big moment. He made 2 or 3 that saved our tournament." Mitch Marner, one of the best players in the world, who had the game winner. Quote, "Massive, some massive saves there. When we really needed him, he was there. That's something you can always trust with Binner. You love to see that out of your goalie. It's the confidence that he's rolling with right now." And final one from Drew Doughty, one of the best players in the world, has been for basically a decade. Quote, "That's Binner for you. Big saves, big times. That's why he's our goalie." End quote. T-Bone, we were wondering how Binner would respond in this tournament, given how many struggles he's had this year. And I think there were moments, even yesterday, where you could see like, all right, yeah, that looks kind of similar to what we saw this year, where he's getting overly aggressive. He's not as quiet in his own crease. But when the moments mattered the most, he made that big save that we've come to know and love about Binner in these big games. How much do you think this could impact, A, the rest of his season, and B, the way that he's potentially valued at this year's deadline if the Blues decide to go that direction?
This is the question that I find so fascinating when we get back from the break, right? I don't really care about what Falk and Schenner, Suter's futures kind of look like because I think they're listening on those guys. But Binner's the one that I think it was Greg Wyshynski told us right before the Olympic tournament started. Yeah, I don't know that anybody was calling about Binnington. And I asked the follow-up question, well, what does it mean if he has a good Olympics? I think there will be teams that call because there are teams going into the playoffs that you can point to and say, hey, we don't have a great goaltender that we trust going into the playoffs. And as we're seeing Binnington once again step his game up, this is where his true value is if you're a team, you can pencil in, like I think we felt this way going into the year. We weren't expecting him to be this bad, but it would have shocked you if I said, yeah, he has like a 900 save percentage in the regular season, and you end up going into the postseason going, yeah, he was only fine, but I would have expected him to step up his game. I do think teams will call. I don't know if the Blues are still going to get the value that they would value Binnington at, right? Because I don't know if anybody's given up a first-round pick for him. I don't think I'll be curious to see if anybody's willing to give up a second-round pick for him or a high-end level prospect for him, because as we've seen these trade deadlines come and go over the last couple of years, goalies just aren't valued around the league like they probably should be. This should be the time of the year where their value skyrockets like we see relievers in baseball skyrocket, because it is probably one of the most important positions when you get to the postseason, like a bullpen is.
So the difference, though, is the way they're deployed, right? When you have a bullpen, you have, 5 to 6 guys that are being used regularly once you get to the postseason. Whereas with a goalie, you can only play one dude, really, most of the time. You really do rely on that guy, and there's so much that affects the way that he plays, so incorporating him into your team can be difficult at times. So I'm guessing that's part of why I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, because I agree with you. If we view this as such a huge thing once we get into the postseason, and every year you get to the playoffs, you're like, I don't know that I trust that team's goalie, so I can't pick them to go far into this tournament. Well, then why don't you go get one? And why don't you value the guys that are available? It's really strange to me.
And every year, isn't there that one team that you always point at going, we really question their goaltending, and it's exactly why they're going home early.
Edmonton, every year.
Edmonton's that team. Winnipeg has been that team for a handful of years. Hell, they were almost knocked out in the first round.
Because you can't change that. Like, Winnipeg is a team where you have the best goalie in the world, and he short circuits in these big moments. So...
but it's just one of those things where, like, you're right. I mean, Colorado was this way for a couple years before they finally got it done with Kemper, who had only one eye apparently in that postseason run. Same with Vegas. Vegas has been this team for the last couple of years, and then eventually they finally get it to click. That's where I'm going to find it interesting, because I think everybody around the NHL looks at Binnington and could make the case for some teams. Not all. You're right. Hellebuck wouldn't be one of them. But some of these teams could look and go, man, I would definitely trust him more when we get to the playoffs than our goalie. Yet they don't seem to value him. And that's where I'll find it. What is Army looking for in a trade for Binnington? Is he going to hold high and ask for whether it be a second round or a first round pick or a high level prospect? Or is he just willing to take like a third round pick in a lottery ticket or a third round pick in like a mid-tier prospect to get him off the books? I don't think he's at that spot yet, and that doesn't make sense for them. I think you just bring him back next year. But that's what I'm going to be fascinated with. What is Army looking for in a Binnington trade?
I don't know. I truly don't know. And I don't know what makes it worth their while, because he's only got the 1 year left on his contract. It's clearly going to be Joe Hofer's net eventually, sooner rather than later. But you have no real backup plans in your minor leagues. So It's not as though you're turning this backup position that's currently Joe Hofer's, if you want to say it that way, to somebody else. You don't have your next Joel Hofer. You don't have your next Ville Husso. There's nobody currently coming through the system that's just like cracking down the door for you. So I think it would make sense to trade Binner. I know that's not a popular thing to say if you get that big return, but you don't just trade him for the sake of trading him. You know, he's still got real value to you as a team. He's still one of, if not the face of the franchise. And I don't think the Blues are planning to be terrible again next year. Maybe they are. I don't know. But it's a really tough spot. I think with a lot of these guys, it's pretty easy. You trade Justin Falk. If you can get something of significance, you probably move on from Braden Shin. It sucks, but it's probably where you're at as an organization. Oscar Sundqvist, it's not fun, but if he's healthy and somebody's willing to give you something for a pending UFA, you could even bring him back in the offseason if you really wanted to, but you probably go ahead and take whatever the asset is that you can get for him. Some of these moves are pretty simple.
And all those moves, like you said, you've got internal replacements.
Binner is different, and Binner is the tough one. So I don't know. He's the kind of guy that if I was a GM, I would be targeting, because I can see it with my own eyes now, and I've seen it in the past. You get into the tournament, I've got a good team, that guy can stand on his head for me and win me a few games to potentially get me over the top, and that's ultimately the goal. I just don't know if GMs actually feel that way. I don't know how they're going to value it compared to the way that we're valuing it here in St. Louis. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. In 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the jug drawer. But next, let's play a game of Beat the Blues. We're going to have 3 different contestants going up against Philip Broberg today. The winner will go home with a signed hockey puck by Broberg and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders coming up on March the 10th. Beat the Blues next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
MU survives at the buzzer versus Vanderbilt. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Missouri held off number 19 Vandy 81-80 on Wednesday night after nearly blowing a 21-point advantage. Tyler Tanner's half-court heave rimmed out as time expired. Tigers head coach Dennis Gates next leads his team into Fayetteville this weekend. Speaking of Arkansas, Alabama beats those Razorbacks 117-115. Double OT style. Illinois crushes USC 101-65, while Kansas cruises past Oklahoma State 81-69. Cardinals spring training Chaim Bloom sat down with TMA earlier. Once again, Jordan Walker's development assuming center stage.
Up in here. He is going to get to his ceiling at some point. We and he need to work together to make sure we're doing everything we can so that it happens soon, so that it can happen here.
Your Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Do you have what it takes to defeat a member of your St. Louis Blues? It's time to find out. Can you beat the Blues?
All right, it's time for Beat the Blues. We do this each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Today's the final edition of Beat the Blues for this season. Our contestant is Philip Broberg. The winner will go home with a signed hockey puck by Philip Broberg and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders coming up on March the 10th. We do have two from Philip Broberg. We do have one today from Colton Parayko as well. Again, the winner going home with that signed hockey puck by Philip Broberg. We have Andrew, Jacob, and John on the line today. It's a very simple game. We will ask Andrew, Jacob, and John to name as many different things that they can within a specific category. They will have 15 seconds to do so. Then we will have that same category for Broberg/Parayko. Whoever ends up beating them by the largest margin will be going home with the signed hockey puck and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders. We begin today with Andrew. Andrew, we appreciate you being a part of the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, we're doing really well. How you enjoying the Olympics so far, Andrew?
Oh, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. At least the hockey is starting to pick up, and it's not as boring as it was in the preliminary round.
So true.
If you had to pick one other sport that you like watching during the Winter Olympics, Andrew, what is it?
I don't know. Probably, I don't know. Since I'm such a big fan of hockey, to be honest, the figure skating's pretty amazing. Just because I think the figure skaters as athletes and what they can do on ice is completely underrated and doesn't get enough.
It's unbelievable. We lost you there for a second there, Andrew. But if you're interested in it, the documentary on Netflix, definitely recommend checking it out. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. I became an expert on the sport in about 2 days.
You gonna try that next winter when you go
God,
skating?
No. Absolutely not. No, zero chance that I would be good at that. All right, Andrew, do you understand the rules of the game, man?
Sure do.
All right, buddy. You are going up against Philip Broberg today. Your category is things that you would eat at a sporting event. Name as many things as you can that you would eat at a sporting event. On your mark, get set, go.
M&M, Skittles, Snickers, 100 grand, popcorn, nachos, hot dog, hamburger, steak, cotton candy, popcorn, sandwich.
Steak, Andrew?
Sure, why not?
Give it to him. At this point, you can just about find anything you want at a ballpark.
You go down to the Redbird Club?
Yeah, why not? Go have some fine dining beforehand.
Yeah, there you go. You can get that there or at Enterprise Center. I'm sure in one of those suites.
I like how we were like giving the convincing part of the answer. Andrew's like, yeah. I'd go with what you guys are saying.
Sure, yeah. He definitely believed everything that he just said. All right, Andrew, you got 12. We'll see how Philip Broberg does on things that he would eat at a sporting event.
Fries, hot dogs, burgers, nachos,
fair to Philip, he's probably not at a lot of sporting events as a fan.
True. We did just see during this U.S. versus Canada game, which is roughly 3/4 of the way through the first period, scoreless tie thus far. A lot of the players over on the bench were taking an applesauce break. The go-go squeeze was the snack of choice. So maybe that's one that we could have used here. All right, that's a +8. That's a really good opening round
to beat
for Andrew. We'll see if Jacob or John are able to do so. Jacob, you're up next, man. How you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
We're doing really well. Are you a hockey guy with the Olympics, or is there another sport that stands out for you?
Oh, I'm a hockey guy. I'm big into curling. Curling's my second one to go to.
Did you see what happened today with the U.S. curling team?
I was only going to watch it later till BK spoiled it in between a break.
I didn't. Don't say anything because I am planning on watching it.
Yeah, good for you, Jacob. It was ruined for me.
No spoilers, but I would watch it. All right, Jacob, do you understand the rules of the game?
I do.
All right, buddy. You are going up against Philip Broberg today. Your category, things that you would find at a golf course. Name as many things as you can that you would find at a golf course. On your mark, get set, go.
Grass, sand, water, trees, golf clubs, golf carts, golf tees, golf balls, gloves, birds, leaves, concrete, people.
Didn't get people before the buzzer, I don't think.
I'll go with 12 then. That's what I got.
That was impressive, though.
That was a very nice round by Jacob. Jacob, are you a golfer?
Really?
Oh, wow. That's even more impressive then.
That was well done by you. All right, Jacob, you got 12. That is the same number as Andrew had in the first round. We'll see how Philip Broberg does with this one. I think he is a bit of a golfer himself.
Golf bag, golf clubs, golf ball, golf cart, the course, clubhouse, hot dogs, tees, greens, bunkers.
I got a 10.
That's what I had as well.
For Philip Broberg, which means it's a +2. It was a good round by Jacob. Unfortunately, it was also a very good round by Philip Broberg as well. So our leader remains Andrew after 2 rounds. The one man that stands between Andrew and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders and a signed hockey puck by Philip Broberg is John, joining us now here on the show. John, how you doing, man?
All right, how are you guys today?
Oh, we're doing well. Are you a hockey guy, or is there another sport in the Olympics that stands out?
I like the hockey. I kind of like the speed skating. It's pretty cool to watch.
The blades in speed skating terrify me. All right, John.
You understand? It can come apart anytime.
Dude, they're putting their fingers down
right
on
by
the
where
ice,
they're putting their
right
skates.
next to all the skates. It just scares the hell out of me. John, do you understand the rules of the game, man?
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. Your category today, going up against Colton Parayko, sports that are a part of the Olympic. Name as many sports as you can that are involved at the Olympics. On your mark, get set, go.
Skiing, figure skating, hockey, luge, skeleton, bobsled, 2-man bobsled, 4-man bobsled, giant slalom, curling.
I got 10.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good round. John, you know your Olympics, man.
Yeah. I've been watching for 2 weeks now. So.
No doubt. All right, John's got 10. He needs 2 or fewer from Colton Parayko in order to take down Andrew today, or at least to force a tiebreaker. We'll see how Colton Parayko did with the category.
Hockey, downhill skiing, long jump skiing. You got long jump, you got 100 meter, you got 200 meter, 400 meter, 800 meter. You got triathlon. You probably got swimming, canoeing.
All right, I got 11 for him, which means a -1 for John, which means Andrew, congratulations.
Yeah. Way to go, Andrew.
You're going home with a signed hockey puck by Philip Broberg and tickets to see the Blues versus the Islanders coming up on March the 10th. Well done, my friend. Congratulations.
Well, thanks. It looks like Sweden fell to the U.S. again.
There you go. All right, well done by our guy Andrew. That was our final edition of Beat the Blues this year. So we have officially given out all of the tickets. That's right, Andrew. All of the tickets and all of the hockey pucks for this year's edition of Beat the Blues. Somebody on the text line said earlier, I think you guys should do this with the Cardinals. I would love to. It is a little more difficult to get Cardinals players to play the game than it is for the Blues because we have the opportunity during media day to just have all of the guys come through and we just get a ton of this stuff at the very beginning of the season. It makes it possible for us to play the game with you guys. On the Cardinals side of things, just to kind of bring you behind the curtain on how the access works, you're basically in the clubhouse for, 30 minutes before a Cardinals game, and it's typically like 3 to 4 o'clock, something thereabouts for a 7 o'clock game. And when they're in there, they're also preparing to go out there. Like pitchers are going out there playing catch, or the guys are getting ready to go through hitting underneath or going out to the cages, doing all their pregame routines. So a lot of the guys just don't like being bothered at that point in time. And us going up to them and saying, hey,
play a game.
Yeah, do you want to do something for us that's going to take a minute of your time, but it's absolutely ridiculous and completely unnecessary? Is that something you're interested in? Most of the guys just say no.
Yeah.
So that's the general reason why we don't do this with the Cardinals, because I'd love to do it, but it's just a little tougher to get them to do.
Yeah, and with the Blues, they get to come through, and they're in our room till they accomplish all the things we need to be accomplished, which is one of these games that they get to do. They can't leave the room till after, which is nice.
Yeah, they're stuck. They've got to do it. And a lot of them actually prefer it because when they're going through this, they do this stuff for like an hour and a half.
And we're the easiest stop of them all.
Yeah, because they've got to go through, like FanDuel has them do some stuff, including, the videos. The Blues have them. Everything you see up on the Jumbotron during the games.
Yep.
They're doing that stuff on these days where there's like, hey, get up on your feet, Blues fans, all that stuff. Like the poses, everything. Some of the stuff that you see that's like a promo on FanDuel Sports, all of that stuff is done on this same day. So they're just constantly having like the same 10 different things that they have to do at all of these different stations. So guys get, understandably frustrated and bothered and tired of doing the same thing over and over. So to be able to have something that's a little bit different on that same day, I think at least many of them appreciate the fact that it's not the same canned answers that they have to do 100 different times otherwise. But the Cardinal side of things, we just don't have the same luxury, and where we would typically do that is down at spring training. TMA's down there right now, which is great, but they're doing it like with actual interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So not the same ability to be able to get some of this stuff. So anyways, that's the behind the scenes on why we don't do it with the Cardinals the way that we do with the Blues, but I'd love to do it in the future if it becomes a possibility. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to talk with our friend and the Blues insider for The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford, as the Blues have now been back on the ice for a couple of days during this Olympic break. What has he made of the line combinations? What's the plan of action for Robert Thomas and Dylan Holloway? We'll talk to JR about all of that in a little less than 15 minutes. The Juncture, though, is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
It's an NBA weekend on ESPN. Saturday, Knicks and Rockets. Pre-game at 7. Tip-off at 7:30 p.m. Then Sunday, it's Warriors and Nuggets. Pre-game at 2. Tip-off at 2:30. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
T-Bone, I know you worked in a soda shop once upon a time.
That's right.
Did you ever work in a restaurant at all? The food industry?
I never worked in the food industry. We did a little bit of like frying food, like pickles, fries, funnel cake, but nothing like the
funnel cake. If you want to talk about a small town diner.
Nothing of the extent of like actually working in the restaurant industry.
Bradford, did you ever have a serving gig or anything like that?
Technically, no, although interesting you would mention a funnel cake, Tanner, because I did work at a rather large theme park, and in guest relations, we dealt with a lot of complaints about unsavory foods and actions happening with those unsavory foods.
Did you work at Six Flags?
That's right.
Oh, really?
Eureka.
What was your gig there?
I was in guest relations immediately after graduating from high school. 2 summers, ridiculously awesome.
Not so awesome?
Lots of stories, though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Well, it didn't have to do with a funnel cake, but let's just say that the ice cream, which was peppered with it, the ice cream generally held in really high esteem, okay, at Six Flags. Not on a couple of afternoons, though, back in the early 2000s, because, well, maybe not just cookie dough was being planted in the ice cream. Per our clientele. Figure that one out for yourselves.
So they were putting stuff in there that wasn't supposed to be in there.
That's right. Not just that cookie dough, buddy.
All right. So the reason that I bring this up, interesting you say that, restaurants have been warned after a diner allegedly plants hair to dodge a $600 bill at a popular Sydney restaurant. So this couple had ordered pretty significant dishes at this beautiful restaurant down in Australia, including like a 3-pound tomahawk steak. So it was a sizable steak and a significant bill, $600 at this restaurant. And they decided, you know what, we're getting out of this. We're not going to have to pay for this bill. So they pull out some of their armpit hair, place it on the meal and say, I'm not paying for this. There was hair on my meal. The restaurant then went back and checked their CCTV to see what happened here. Like, how did this take place? Because we take pretty good care of our food. Everybody, they've got the hair nets, everything else that is making sure, hey, we're in a good spot to give you the best meal possible. And they saw exactly what took place. Quote, I've never seen anything like this before. This was another level of trying to scam us. Staff claim that the issue was raised only once the family had finished eating their meal. So this was the last thing that took place prior to them getting out of there. You guys know how I am. If I get the wrong meal, I just eat it. If there's something that is prepared in a way that I didn't ask for, guess what? That's the way I'm getting it. I'm not like, there are times where we go to a spot out in St. Charles and like Kara and Luca have their thing and we get something else heated up or whatever. It doesn't come out. That's fine. I'm not getting it then. That's cool by me.
It didn't show up.
That's cool by me. I would never have the balls to do something like this.
I'm with you.
I can't imagine what has to go through your mind to be like, we're not only going to do this, we're going to get away with it.
And what I want to know is, like, did they plan that from the get-go? Or was it when the bill showed up, they went, whoa, I didn't realize what we were spending?
Oh, they had to know. This looks like a pretty damn nice restaurant. And if they bought a 3-pound-ish steak, they knew what they were getting into.
Premeditated.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't do it. I'm one of the, I've told this story before where the gas pump in Kentucky wouldn't take my car, but yet it let me pump gas, and I drove an hour away and then circled back around because I couldn't have it on my conscience that I didn't pay, and I circled back around and made sure I did it.
I'm fine with that.
Oh, that one's fine, but at a restaurant, you don't get your food and you're still going to pay for it.
If I'm already gone, it is what it is. My good deeds on these other places make up for the fact that I screwed that one up.
Usually the karma will come back around to you in a bad way.
Like, have you ever gone to a store, obviously not on purpose, but like, especially when you've got a kid, sometimes like in Disney World, I didn't forget this, but I would put like a water bottle in my back pocket as I'm walking around the store carrying Luca, and then you put it on the desk and you pay for it at the end, right? There are times where people just forget about the fact that they put that in their back pocket, and so you keep walking and you realize 5-10 minutes later, oh my God, I totally forgot to pay for that $6 bottle of water that I was supposed to buy. I'm sure people have done that before, right?
No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
You've never done that? Bradford?
No, not so
No.
much.
No.
I can understand,
that
though.
one actually felt more coordinated.
Okay.
I get it.
Nobody does that, huh?
Yeah,
Go on there.
I've never put no, I don't have a kid, but even then, like, text line help me out here. I don't think so. No. Okay. Yeah. I think you're on your own on that one.
Maybe I'm alone. Again, I didn't actually do that, but I could see how that would happen.
You're just defending yourself is what you're doing.
Theoretically speaking, I could see how somebody would forget about that.
Yeah, I can see
It
how
make
you would
sense
put
to me.
a water bottle in your
stuff
back
going through
pocket.
your mind.
Yeah. And like put your soda in your back pocket as well that you wanted. Yeah,
It's
sure.
plausible. It's plausible.
Where else are you doing it? You're holding a child.
I would give it to my wife to hold on to.
You don't have your wife next to you. It's you with the kid. You're
Don't you
walking
hold
through a
him
store.
and hold a water bottle?
Man, he's 30 pounds. No, sometimes no.
Then what I tell you is hit the weight room, big boy.
Okay.
Maybe he's holding something else. He's got a stuffed animal. He has something else. Hey,
Somebody
come
said,
on now.
did you go back and pay for it once you realized? Again, I didn't do that.
No,
but I'm
yet somehow
saying-
this one doesn't sit on his conscience. But the food, like, oh, how could he ever point out to a server, my food did not show up?
See, it's happened.
I agree, Sheepy Reporter. Major serial killer vibes.
Somebody said, I've definitely opened a snack for my kid in the store and forgot to pay for it. See, that stuff happens. I've walked out of a store with something, but I go back in and pay.
You did not.
I didn't do that. I'm telling you, I remembered to put it up on the table to check out before I left. But some people I could imagine probably forgot to do so for the $5.50 smart water that they charge you out of Disney World.
That's it? $5.50?
Yeah, $5.50.
Shame.
It's insane. The amount of money that you spend on just like the little stuff, that's where they really get you. It's not the $175 ticket a day. It's the
$6
you're
water.
You're going to pay $6 for this water and $6 for that Diet Coke that you want to drink.
And then
you want a beer? Cool, $17.
Did you leave your sunscreen at home? Bam, we've got you.
Toothpaste, $27. Congratulations. Enjoy it.
How many different people, I'm curious, are posting up down there to take your photo? The family photo.
Oh, it's everywhere. Yeah.
Each and every ride.
Yeah.
Post ride.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Luca, here's the toy. Maybe, maybe not. No, here's the photo.
Yeah, after every ride is a gift shop of some kind. And it's a $25 plushie toy. It's a $50 sweatshirt. You know, it's all of this stuff. That's they know what they're doing out there.
Yeah.
They don't mess around. All right, alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Just one more time, just to make it very, very clear, I did not do that, but I could see how it would happen to somebody. Coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Jared McCormick from Ellis Grove, Illinois. He is our newest 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. It's time for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford, on 101 ESPN.
JR is brought to you by Evergreen Wealth Strategies, helping everyday people every day. Visit evergreen-ws.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Blues Insider for The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on the show. JR, what's good, man?
Nothing, buddy. How you doing?
Doing really well. How has your break been treating you?
It's been good. The downtime is always recharges the batteries, especially with what's looming with the trade deadline. Yeah. Obviously, that's going to be action-packed, so that's been good, but not trying to, pat on the back, but been trying to stay active in terms of working on some feature stories that I think Blues fans will love to read here in the coming weeks after the trade deadline. So I realize what's the priority right now, and in the meantime, I want to have some stories ready to go so we can tell you some more about these Blues players the rest of the season.
How much have you been able to dive into these Olympic Games?
Yeah, pretty much involved in watching all the big ones here. I know that we interviewed Jim Montgomery yesterday, and he said, I thought it was interesting, BK, because we watch it from the fan perspective. I think we're allowed to do that, when it's not necessarily the Blues, the team that we cover. But Jim Montgomery said yesterday he spent a couple days in Cancun with his wife, but then came back. And what he's watching with these Olympic Games, how do the coaches use their bench? What players are they going to in crunch time? Things like that. So I thought it was interesting to hear from Jim Montgomery how he watches these Olympic Games.
Yeah, and JR, now that they have returned to the ice, what can you tell us about an update on Dylan Holloway and Robert Thomas?
Yeah, some good news on Dylan Holloway, guys. I know that there was some concern about that ankle. He came back a little bit too soon. He admitted that a couple days ago at his locker stall. He said just felt good. They were playing his former team, the Edmonton Oilers. He wanted to get back on the ice, but it was probably too soon. And so, there's some rumblings that, some discomfort and would surgery be necessary, but it turns out that he's back on the ice right here after the break and looking good. And Jim Montgomery said he's a full-time player unless there's any setbacks at this point, Tanner. And then with Robert Thomas, he was not on the ice when I was out there, yesterday, but 2 days ago. But Robert Thomas, they expect to be a practice player maybe by the weekend, and they expected him to be back when the team returns. The schedule resumes. We don't know if that's going to be the case yet, but to get him back at practice would be a good step.
How do you think that affects what they're going to do with Pavel Buchnevich? I know he had been playing center prior to the break, but with Pius Suter and Robert Thomas, Braden Shin, now adding in another guy via waivers, do you think Buch kicks back over to the wing here pretty soon?
So that's interesting because there's, with this team, all the questions are going to be about what are they going to do at the trade deadline. And, I know there's less hockey type questions just because of where the team's at in the standings right now. But that question, BK, was asked of Jim Montgomery a couple days ago. And he said that he likes what Buchnevich has done in the middle. And I believe he said that he's one of their best players down low, which the center position entails. And so he looked at it moving forward that Robert Thomas, when he's healthy, Pavel Buchnevich and Dalibor Dvorsky would be the three centers down the middle, even when they got healthy. And so, Braden Shen, who's played a lot of wing, would push to the wing, and some of these other guys would be on the wing. So that looks to be the middle 1, 2, 3, according to Jim Montgomery.
JR, do you think that is because they know they're potentially moving two centers out at the deadline, that they need someone to kind of fill in this stopgap in the second half? Or is this something that they might be willing to experiment with if this works well in the home stretch going into next season as well?
Well, it's interesting because two things. One, Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen went to Buffalo to talk to Buchnevich and his agent about the contract extension, now a couple of years ago, and they said, we like you at center. And look, these are smart hockey people. They don't just willy-nilly say, say, hey, we want to try you out at this position and then just go away from it. It did not work that first time through. Obviously, he needed work in the faceoffs, but I think everybody saw him as a wing, and Jim Montgomery saw him as a wing. He said that's his best position. So do they foresee a couple trades? Yes, that's possible. If there's a healthy Oscar Sundqvist, does he get moved? I know people have asked about Pius Suter. They've picked up Jack Finley to fill in some of that void moving forward at center. I don't know if we can sit here and say there's definitely going to be people move. I think right now this is just based on Buchnevich picking it up, putting up some points, and as Jim Montgomery said, being one of their better players down low. I think that's why the move's being made now. They'll continue to look at it, and whether we see Buchnevich at center on the wing when next season opens up, who knows? But this is what they're going with right now.
We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN, and you can find all of his work over at The Athletic, and be sure to follow him on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR, speaking of up the middle, you mentioned his name, Dalibor Dvorsky. He's putting together a historic Olympic run for a rookie. He now has more points than any rookie in the history of the Olympics. What has stood out to you about his performance thus far, and how do you think that can translate to him in the second half of this season?
Yeah, BK, just the fact that you can tell he knows he belongs. And I think for any young player, that's a question mark. Heck, did you guys see the tidbit? Macklin Celebrini called his dad, and they were having a conversation prior to flying over to Italy for the Olympics, and he said, Dad, do you think I'm going to play? Like, do you think they're going to play me? And then he gets over there and he looks on the board, and he's on the line with McKinnon and McDavid. Listen, you can be the best of the best, and that's how these young players think. They're just not quite sure. And Dalibor Dvorsky, being around him for a couple of years now, not that he lacked the confidence, but you just didn't sense that he knew he belonged, and eventually everything would come together for him. I say, and I know Jim Montgomery said this a couple days ago, that of the 5 Blues players who are over at the Olympics, I don't care if Jordan Binnington wins a gold medal and brings it home, and everybody says, hey, we were wrong about Jordan Binnington. The player who's going to gain the most from this Olympic experience helping the Blues move forward is Dalibor Dvorsky. I'm not saying this solidifies him as a top 6 center in the league, and he's a guy who's going to be 60 points for you next year. I'm just saying what he's gained at this Olympics is going to springboard him for the Blues' benefit. I think like something that you didn't quite expect. 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists, getting his team Slovakia into the semifinals against the U.S. This is quite an accomplishment with he and his other Slovakian teammates.
And, JR, you mentioned Binnington, and we saw a big game. Benner showed back up yesterday in that game and made a couple of big saves in the home stretch against Czechia. My question to you is, with him performing well in the Olympics, do you think we're going to see his trade stock go up? And if so, what do you think it would take for the Blues to move on from him at the trade deadline?
Yeah, so this is going to be one that's interesting. Does something happen? If so, does it happen before the deadline? Does happen in the summer? He's got a year left on that contract. It's possible for sure. Not trying to ride the fence, but I've been of the belief. I know there's been a lot of talk that, hey, if he has a great tournament, does that spur a team to ring the Blues and get that deal done? It could, but I don't see how that much changes if he wins a gold with Canada and made some key saves like he did yesterday to get into the gold medal game. Everybody knows who he is. And even though his numbers have been horrific this year, and, over the years, there's been a couple seasons where it wasn't great. They know that he's a big game goalie. That doesn't change whether you're trying to acquire him 6 months ago or you're trying to acquire him after the Olympics. So, it's just, is there that team out there that says, hey, we're going to take a chance here. We're going to go get a guy who we think can help us win a Stanley Cup. And if they do, and they contact the Blues, then Doug and Jordan Binnington are going to have that conversation. He's got the 14-team no trade, modified no trade clause, so that's going to be something that'll be involved in the conversation too. But all I can go by, Tanner, is when I asked Doug Armstrong that question a few months ago out at the Blues practice facility, he said if it comes to that, whether it's us going to Jordan or Jordan coming to us, we'll have that conversation, see what sounds best, and go from there. So I definitely could see that happening. You just don't know, is that a deadline move, or is that something that we see this summer?
All right, JR, we'll get you out of here on this. Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on 101 ESPN. How many conversations are happening right now? Like, can you give us a little bit of insight, if possible, on what the trade market is like? I know technically it's a roster freeze, but are these GMs having conversations behind the scenes?
Yeah, and I don't pretend to know how many or who's talking, but yes, they can have conversations during the freeze. There just can't be any moves. I think even if they were prohibited from having those conversations, they'd probably still be having them, right? But
what are you saying? Free agency starts before the official start date?
Way,
is that
JR.
what you're suggesting?
Yeah. Yeah, and hey, listen, I know people know this. I'm not telling anybody anything new here, but if you see a trade in the next couple weeks before the deadline with the Blues, I'd put the percentages at 80% that it's something they've been talking to Team X about for months. Like I know that Doug Armstrong says, hey, this thing just came together last week, or talks picked up, or so on and so forth. But the Jay Bomeister trade, months and months and months. Like these things take some time to pull off. And so whether they can talk during this break and get to the nitty gritty and figure it out, and we see a deal, right out of the break, that's possible. But they're going to have 12 days and a few games to kind of finalize things before that trade deadline. So we'll see how quickly those things happen.
JR, enjoy the next week, man. Getting back to the grind sooner rather than later. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yep. It's going to be a good grind, so it'll be fun. I know Blues fans are ready to see what happens.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on 101 ESPN, as he does each and every week on BK and Ferrario. By the way, new edition of the Last Minute Blues podcast will be posted later on this afternoon. So if you want to hear even more about your Blues, you can check that out later on today at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. You will also have a new edition of the Redbird Report later on this afternoon as well. So plenty to see over at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. There is also TMA, which has been broadcasting live all week this week from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. tomorrow, 7 to 10. We'll be on starting at 10 tomorrow from Cardinal Spring Training down in Jupiter. TMA live from spring training all week, brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. Today they had Chaim Bloom, they had Dustin May and Ryan Stanek as well. They also yesterday had Ollie Marmol. Some good conversations all posted on the YouTube page and at 101ESPN.com. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance team studio cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN studio cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and it is time for NFL Quick Hitters. One big piece of news, not a ton to discuss here, but All-Pro right tackle Lane Johnson has announced he's expected to return for the 2026 season. With the Philadelphia Eagles, there was some conversation about whether or not he would retire. It sounds like he will be back for 2026. The big news in the NFL, more locally, is the Chicago Bears. It sounds as though they are going to be heading to Indiana, T-Bone. Oh. Now, this is kind of similar to the conversation with Kansas City. I'm not as familiar with the dynamics of Northwest Indiana / Chicago as I am with Kansas City, where the state line is kind of a big deal for the Missouri versus the Kansas rivalry. But in all reality, most people either work on one side and live on the other, or like it's just not that big of a deal to drive the 25 minutes over the state line and cross into the other side. So whatever, Chiefs moved from the Missouri side to the Kansas side, doesn't really matter that much. I don't know how much people in Chicago care about this, but the plan is for the Bears to build a new stadium in Hammond, Indiana. This is roughly 35 minutes away from the city in Chicago. I wonder if we're starting to see a new trend here in the NFL, T-Bone. We saw this with Santa Clara. The 49ers built their stadium in Santa Clara instead of the city of San Francisco. We've seen the Chiefs now go to the Kansas side where they have a ton of land and they were offered this great deal by the state of Kansas. Now the Bears are doing the same thing with Indiana, offering them a ton of money to be outside of the actual city of Chicago. I wonder if we're going to start seeing this more and more where these teams are kind of outside of the city that they reside in. And so it's more of like a Chicago area Bears as opposed to the actual Chicago Bears, because it's so hard to get the public financing from these massive cities in these states that say, yeah, go ahead, leverage this, go 30 minutes outside. What do we care?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked that this becomes kind of a trend that we see, because that's what you just said there is what they're really looking for. Who's going to give them the best deal to make something happen? And for the Chiefs, it came on the Kansas side of the state line. For the Bears, it came from apparently the state of Indiana, not Iowa or Chicago. So, yeah, I think we're going to start seeing this from teams when they look for new stadiums. Some places can still get it, like Nashville was able to get it. The Titans' new stadium, I think, is right by their old one, if I'm not mistaken. So whatever town, county, state is going to give you the best deal, you're going to see these NFL teams and probably other professional sports teams be willing to take that and go where they can never get the most public financing.
This one's actually pretty interesting to me, having spent actually a time or two, a night or two in Hammond, in proximity to Indiana Dunes. And let's just say the wife and I, we didn't exactly see a lot of individuals strolling around in Bears gear, Bears fandom. In any event, it's interesting because you think about this particular region, which is really situated in an area with a lot of industry. Yes, BK, to your point, it's only 35 or so minutes from the heart, the city of Chicago there. It just seems weird on the surface to say, but I agree with you insofar as I do think you could be building toward this trend of being outside of the general metropolis, the big hubs. Maybe we are moving more and more in this direction.
Text line from the 636, guys. The Giants and Jets started this by moving to the Meadowlands. I think New England was actually one of the first teams to really do this. Robert Kraft moved the stadium. They are not in Boston.
They're in
fact,
Foxborough.
They are like the midpoint of Boston and Providence, Rhode Island. It is like 45 minutes outside of the city to get there. My buddy covers the Patriots. It's easier for him to cover the Patriots from Providence than it is from Boston because of all the traffic that it takes to get there. And so he just lives in Providence. And the same thing is true. Like, I think the team, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Patriots fly into and out of the Providence airport because it's just easier for them. So, yeah, this is not all that unique anymore. Santa Clara, Kansas City, the New England Patriots, the New York Giants / Jets are both doing this. Chicago is now doing it as well. You see this all across the NFL. We're seeing it more and more often where these teams are technically located in the spot and you attribute them to that place, but they actually play their football games somewhere slightly different. Other news in the NFL, this is more speculation. The Athletics beat writer for the San Francisco 49ers put together a piece on why the 49ers say they're going to keep Mac Jones, but he thinks the Stars could align this offseason for a potential trade. T-Bone, I've kind of thought that all along. I understand why they want to keep him, but if somebody's willing to offer you a day 2 pick, a second or third round draft pick for Mac Jones, and you have your long-term answer at the quarterback position in Brock Purdy, I think that's probably going to be too much to pass up. Who do you think that team could be? Who do you think makes sense for Mac Jones?
You mentioned the Athletic. I saw a piece earlier this week. I think it's the Vikings. The Vikings are going to be looking for someone to, quote-unquote, compete with J.J. McCarthy. Let's be real. They would prefer to find their replacement for J.J. McCarthy. I think Mac Jones would make a ton of sense in McConnell's system. I think he could do what Sam Darnold did last year there with McConnell as the head coach. So I would circle the Vikings as the team that I could see trying to make a deal work out. Now, it's a little complicated because they're so far behind in the cap space-wise, but he's on a pretty cheap deal for this year. You can get him in for a year, see if it works out. It's almost a rental like Darnold was, and if it works, this time around you keep him rather than letting him walk. They're the team that I would circle for this trade, but I agree with you. San Fran should be looking to move him because you don't practice bleeped. You might as well go ahead and capitalize while you've got an asset that can get you a second-day pick.
Yeah, numbers aside, Minnesota just makes too much sense, right? To go from one quarterback whisperer in a Kyle Shanahan to Kevin O'Connell there. And bear in mind, Mac Jones, it seems as if in some respects he's been around forever. He's still just 27. He just went 8-3 as a starter a season ago. And Tanner, you saw it firsthand. That performance against the Rams in particular, when he was down Kittle, when he didn't have obviously Ayuk, Jennings in that game either, or even Pierce. He almost single-handedly lifted San Fran to victory, and it wasn't until the latter part of the season when we were really talking about, okay, Brock Purdy has come back into the thick of it, has regained that starting assignment. Jones had that offense humming. Maybe now, again, having spent the year there in San Francisco, you see the full number of tools on display.
I don't think they'll do it. Do you think Indy would consider it? Instead of bringing back Daniel Jones on a market-breaking contract, he's coming off of a significant injury. Would you consider just trading a pick and bringing in Mac Jones? I don't think Mac Jones is all that much worse of a quarterback than Daniel Jones. They do it differently. Daniel Jones has a lot more as an athlete than what Mac Jones does, but Mac might even be a better thrower of the football than Daniel Jones at this point in his career. And I think we saw last year, it's a really good infrastructure. They've got a good offensive coordinator that can potentially get the most out of him. They have pretty darn talented playmakers around him. I don't know what's going to happen with Alec Pierce, but he's not going to break the bank, and they don't have a ton of money to spend this offseason. Would they make sense?
I like the fit because I think what you said there, too, is they've already got the structure in place, which will help him out. And Mac's the kind of quarterback that I think if he went there, I could see where he could put up Jones-esque numbers and be, 10 wins probably is what you probably max out as with Mac Jones at your quarterback spot. But that would be a win for a team rather than banking on Daniel Jones. And the important part for him, you mentioned that he's a more athletic quarterback than Mac Jones, and I agree. But I don't know if he's still that guy coming off a torn Achilles. That's the other thing. We see a lot of guys, it's not like he was super explosive, but you lose that when you tear that Achilles. Look at what happened to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins moved pretty well until he tore the Achilles, and then he couldn't move at all. So I could see Indy making some sense for him. I think that's a better option than, going to the free agent pool and trying to sign like Tua or Kyler if they get cut, or trading for Kyler, honestly. And same for like Malik Willis. I would rather have Mac Jones than go sign Malik Willis, who's a free agent.
I love that fit. You're still talking, BK, about a run-oriented offense for another year or two with Jonathan Taylor. It would seem as if Tyler Warren doing nothing but continuing to improve. That's a nice landing spot.
A couple of people on the text line have brought up Pittsburgh. If they decide not to go with Aaron Rodgers, I think they could make some sense for a deal like this as well. I think if I'm Mac Jones, not that he has any say in the matter, but I would rather be in Indy than in Pittsburgh. I think it's just a better landing spot and with a better infrastructure overall in place for you. But he's a really interesting target this offseason. If you were another team and you saw Mac Jones, Kyler Murray, who else is available this offseason? Tua potentially, and Malik Willis. who would you be most interested in, understanding you're probably going to have to give up a day 2 pick if you want to get into the Mac Jones sweepstakes?
Mine would still be Mac Jones, giving up the day 2 pick. I saw more from him last year, and maybe I'm falling victim to what some organizations would. Let's not forget where Darnold went, to where he kind of resurrected his career. He didn't play, but he went to San Francisco and was developed a little bit under Kyle Shanahan. So I would say Mac Jones. I don't trust Kyler. I think he's just too tiny, and these character concerns, I think, would be one way to say it for him, playing Call of Duty rather than studying football film. And then I can't bank on Tua's health. I would go Mac Jones, and I'm not buying what Malik Willis has done. He's mostly done that with his legs, too. So I would say Mac Jones is the guy for me still.
A couple of weeks ago when we batted this around originally, I was actually in, believe it or not, the Malik Willis camp. That's because I didn't really feel as if you could assign a lot of viability to whether Mac Jones would be available. If that is indeed the case, and you're talking about somebody whose growth was really stunted quite a bit, it was stunted a lot after that first season in New England. He made his mistakes, yes, but when McDaniels left and you basically tried to cobble together some semblance of an offense, you had Matt Patricia, for crying out loud, calling some shots along with Joe Judge. A lot of things happened at that point, and you understand why the production plummeted. I would give him an extended run.
Last thing that I wanted to get to here, I would go Mac Jones as well. I think it's worth it. I think there's still a little bit of upside.
Can I throw one more team at you real quick for them? What about Atlanta? If you were Atlanta, would you do it?
They're interesting. I just don't know. I don't know what's the situation with their quarterback. He's had, 3-4 different ACL injuries at this point in time.
Yeah.
If you believe in him coming back, I don't think you can make that move. They also have a lot of money situations coming up. Like they got to figure out what they're going to do with Kyle Pitts this offseason. He's a free agent. They also only have 1 year left with Drake London after this year on his contract, so they probably need to extend him if they're going to, and that's going to be $30+ million a year. And that's to say nothing of Bijan Robinson, who only has 1 year left on his contract as well. So I don't know. Mac would make some sense for them, but it really comes down. I think they have to do 1 more year. I think they have to run it back with their current situation and see what it looks like. If he fails again, now we can talk about it. But I don't think you can pull the ripcord on that a year in, even though there is some obvious injury concerns. So it's something you signed up for coming into this.
I think I would do it if I'm Atlanta. I didn't see enough from Penix to make me think, I should
just
wait for him.
Just a big asset to give up when...
I agree, but I think if you're Atlanta, you now have an offensive mind that, you can have your quibbles with Stefanski. I think Stefanski failed because of the situation. I think he's a solid coach, and I think he could get the best out of Mac Jones. And with that offense paired with the defense that was pretty good last year, there's going to be big-time decisions that are coming up here soon. They could win the South if they went in and got Mac Jones and be a playoff team, and then you can kind of figure it out from there. And if you do have to extend him, it's not like I don't think he would be breaking the bank. He's probably, even on an extension, if he plays well, would have to settle more for a mid-tier quarterback contract, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Last thing to get to, Daniel Jeremiah has his updated NFL mock draft. Next week is the NFL Scouting Combine. That's really kind of the unofficial beginning of draft season. For those curious, though, who are some of the names that I should know going into this year's NFL Combine? Daniel Jeremiah is as plugged in as anybody, and he does his top 50 based upon what he sees on the tape. He does his mock drafts, though, based upon what he's hearing from scouts across the league. His number 1 pick is no surprise, Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana. He has Mendoza going to the Las Vegas Raiders. That feels like it's basically been decided already. I think the draft starts at 2 this year. And that's where you're going to hear a lot of different names, mostly on the defensive side of the ball. He has David Bailey, the defensive end from Texas Tech, going number 2 overall. He is skinny. He is a pure edge rusher, adds nothing as a run defender, but that is one name to keep in mind. Other guys that are up there include Ruben Bain, the defensive end from Miami, who feels like he's getting a lot of buzz as a top 5 pick now, whereas previously it was like, T-Rex arms. Not the same quickness that you typically would want for an edge rusher in the top 5. Now it's like, he's super strong and unbelievably productive, and the guy is just going to be a really good football player. Take him in the top 5. Carnell Tate, he has going number 5 overall to the Giants, wide receiver out of Ohio State. He also has Arvell Reese, the edge rusher from Ohio State, going number 7. Mekhi Lemon, T-Bone, a guy that you saw against Illinois last year.
I think that guy's a stud.
Wide receiver out of USC. He's got him going 8. He's got Jeremiah Love going 9, the running back out of St. Louis originally. Notre Dame running back at 9 to the Chiefs. Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, going 10 overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. Is there any individual player that you guys find to be really intriguing or compelling going into next week's NFL Combine?
Lemon's my favorite player in this draft from the receiver room. I watching him, I think he's going to be a stud in the NFL. He's a guy that if he fell down to 9, I know you love Reuben Bain, but if he does get selected before that, we had this conversation yesterday of what do the Chiefs do at the wide receiver room with Rice having his issues. Mm-hmm. If Lemon's there at 9, I would love to see him on the Chiefs. I think he would be unbelievable with Patrick Mahomes. He's my favorite wide receiver in this class that I'm excited to see where he's going to end up landing.
I'm very curious to see exactly how high Lemon rises. You saw what he did in the second half of the season, in particular for USC. The whole receiving class, as far as having maybe 3 of those guys potentially all going in the top 12, it's pretty fascinating. I am not sold on Bailey. I understand, obviously, the physical tools, the measurables on display. But when you're talking about Bain as well, I don't know if we have either on tape or for a prolonged period of time, even the amount of evidence, the information we did last season, guys, when you had somebody like an Abdul Carter getting picked number 3 overall, you knew, okay, this is the guy. This is tangible. 23.5 tackles for loss. I don't feel as if there's a surefire guy at number 2 right now, even a Downs, even a Reese. That's to be determined, and I think there's going to be a lot of fluctuation in the next few weeks.
It's 6 wide receivers going in the first round.
Okay.
Did Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network. By the way, Zion Young, he had going number 31 overall, first round, for former Mizzou defensive end Zion Young. Guy that I'm really interested in is Keldrick Falk, defensive end out of Auburn. He's very young. He's like 20 years old. He had exactly 2 sacks last year. 2. He's going to be a first-round pick. The reason being, he's 6'6", he's 270 pounds, he's seemingly an athletic freak, and Auburn used him as more or less a defensive tackle. So he didn't have the sack production, but there was reasons for that, and I think teams are going to convince themselves, we can get more out of this guy than what he did in college. It could be very similar to, remember the year that it was...
I know who you're trying to think of because I was just over here
defensive
thinking.
end Trayvon Walker out of Georgia. He was the toolsy guy, and then out of Michigan, why am I blanking on his name? Lions defensive end, edge rusher.
Hutchinson?
Aiden Hutchinson. He was the guy with all of the production. That's going to be the conversation for some of this stuff with Keldrick Falk, where it's like, man, he doesn't have the production, but look at everything else. This guy looks the part. That'll be what you end up hearing as we get closer to the NFL draft. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll hit the rewind and give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan coming up on March the 7th. But next, it's Believe It or Not here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Tune in all week as the morning after broadcast live from Cardinals spring training in Jupiter, Florida. Tim, Doug, Martin, and Jackson are talking with players and coaches and keeping you up to date on all things Redbirds and Roger Dean Stadium. Don't miss TMA live from spring training all week. Brought to you by Healthcare Evolution. Injury happens, regeneration works. Same-day pain relief at healthcareevolution.com. Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Walker's fresh approach, heralded by Bloom. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Earlier today, Cardinals president of baseball operations, Chaim Bloom, visited TMA's spring training set, where the topic of Jordan Walker's development once again took center stage.
As far as the swing was concerned, had a really good plan, communicated with us on it, was in touch with our hitting guys, made some meaningful changes. Now, we haven't faced the opposition yet, right? So we'll see what that all looks like, but looking at where he's at mechanically, looking at where he's at approach-wise, that means so much more than what the batting average looks like after 50 at-bats.
Grapefruit League play starts tomorrow when Baltimore hosts Aaron Judge's Yankees. STL schedule will open this weekend. Right now, Team USA and Canada facing off for Olympic gold in women's hockey. America down 1-0 through 2 full periods. Your Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Look at what.
Did you miss this, BK?
So much.
This is better than going to Disney World, let's be honest. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer.
Could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
I was taken aback.
Would you hold your composure over there?
Misfire.
What happened over there?
What do you mean, what happened? Did you not hear it?
I heard it. Bradford's an excellent singer. He's better than all of us.
I have received acclaim, yes.
Yeah.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Believe it or not, that was the worst rendition of Believe It or Not that we've ever done.
I don't know. I think last week's was worse.
Really?
Because Bradford pulled down the music a little. You know, I always keep it up to where you can kind of hear us and it drowns out all our awful tone.
Sure, yeah.
Did you like the level today?
I did.
You like
it? Was better. But yesterday he dragged it down and it caught both me and Alex by surprise. And we actually heard what we sounded like. Yeah, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say not believe it. I think last week's was worse.
That was a wild ride. That's
worse because you lost it over there.
I don't know. I would say better. Believe it or not, Mizzou will make it to the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with my guns and say not still.
Okay.
I think they slip up somewhere along the way, and they've managed to not get to the win total we've talked about of 10. I think they might slip up at Mississippi State or Oklahoma. My bet would be Oklahoma since they already nearly lost that game. So I'm going to say not believe it.
Look, I'll tell you this. I don't feel good about them at all against Arkansas. After Arkansas lost that game in double overtime last night,
oh, yeah.
Mizzou got the big win. I do not feel good about Mizzou going on the road to Arkansas this weekend. That's going to be ugly. Don't watch.
Oh, you mean trying to take care of the freshman sensation?
Yeah,
49 points last night. That's Alabama, though, too, isn't it? Well, I've been consistent this entire way. Why would I get off of the train right now? Send it all the way to Como. Send it to St. Louis. Look, Missouri is making this tournament, okay? Basically, you can say that the case was cemented last night unless you have some sort of unexpected foul up against Mississippi State or Oklahoma. Those games are on the road. They're away from Columbia. I understand that. You have to take care of business. If you're able to get one more at home somewhere along the way, I don't even know if that's as essential anymore, guys, but I still like this team's chances, as soon as next Tuesday as well against Tennessee at home.
I think they're going to get in. I'm going to believe this. The game that worries me is that Oklahoma game. That's the one that makes me nervous. I think they should beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State's just not very good. Oklahoma makes me a little nervous. I do think, though, even if they were to lose that one, I still think they could potentially beat one of Tennessee or Arkansas at home. I think both of those games are winnable at home. Mizzou is a very good home team under Dennis Gates. They typically take care of business, and they pull off surprising upsets, including the one that you saw last night. They beat Florida earlier this year. That's a better team than either Arkansas or Tennessee. So I'll say they get in. I'll believe this. I think they win 2 of these games down the stretch. T-Bone?
Guys, we were just talking about the NFL draft, and we were making reference to Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. He only had one quarterback going in the first round, and that is Mendoza at number 1 overall. Guys, believe it or not, Mendoza will be the only quarterback selected in the first round of this year's draft.
Believe it. I think he's going to be the only first-round quarterback. I think you might only get 2 in the top 70 picks this year.
Him and Simpson.
It's an extremely light class. I know we say this a lot, and sometimes it becomes a surprise, and you're like, oh, okay, that guy went 24th, huh? This year, man, it's rough out there. There is almost nothing. Quarterback and running back. I think you get 1 running back in the first round. I think you get 1 quarterback in the first round. And I think you might then only get 1 other running back in the top 50-ish and 1 other quarterback in the top 50 plus. So definitely.
Totally believe it. At this point a year ago, I may have said 4, perhaps even 5 quarterbacks. I definitely would have gone with Lenore Sellers. I would have said he's jumping, he's going to be a first-round pick, not just a project. I would have probably said BK's boy, Cade Klubnik. How did that work out for yours truly? And maybe even a Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah.
The latter 2 crashed and burned. We had Simpson rise up, but in no way does he project as a first-rounder. To me, guys, simply not enough experience at that level. I think he's round 2 at best.
Garrett Nussmeier, by the way, is like 6 foot, 190 pounds. So
That too.
And small hands. So he doesn't have any of the measurables. He had a really bad year. I don't know, man. I kind of like him. I think he could potentially be a decent backup, but you're not taking that in the top 50.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would believe this. I think you're only going to see Mendoza that gets drafted in the first round. I'm fascinated to know who it is, though, that's going to take Ty Simpson in the second round. It screams a team that's incompetent, so it screams like Cleveland, for example, would bring him in, and then he fails in 2 years, and they just continue their quarterback purgatory.
Put him in the room.
Yeah, but I'm going to believe it. I think there's only one guy that is a definite first-round pick.
Bradford?
Garrett Nussmeier, no Drake May, that's for sure. All right, guys, believe it or not, the 2 superpowers on the men's side, we're still waiting to see if the U.S. and Canada will square off, but what we do know in Milan right now, on the women's side of things, the U.S. trailing through 2 periods by the score of 1-0. Believe it or not, the U.S., which entered this game as a 2.5 goal favorite, 30-plus goal differential in the Olympics entering this tilt, finds a way to rally, gets it done, and knocks off Canada.
Believe it. They'll win. They'll get it done.
I'm going to say not believe it. I think Canada pulls off the upset.
Oh, like 4 years ago, Tanner. Come on. It was supposed to change this year.
It will.
I also wonder if we're going to see one of Canada or U.S. on the men's side go down tomorrow. They did not play well in the quarterfinals.
They did not,
It only gets tougher from here in the semis. And the one that I would really pin on upset watch would be the U.S. Because the Slovaks have been playing very well so far in this tournament. I could see where if they're in that thing through 2 periods, they find that way to get that 1 goal to pull it off in the 3rd period.
I'd be suspicious of that as well. I will believe that the U.S. rallies has simply been too dominant, that team has been throughout the course of this tournament. Canada, obviously has the captain back, but end-to-end action through the first 2 periods, U.S. will get ample chances in the 3rd.
All right, let's get to some of these from the text line, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get your Believe It or Nots in. Merp the Barbarian says, believe it or not, Seattle will win the NFC West again next year. I'll say not.
I'm going to say not as well. I think the Rams are going to go all in this offseason. They've got 2 first-round picks to play with. I think they're going to be willing to dangle one of those and knowing them maybe both of them. And I think they're going to push their chips all in. They realize they've only got another year or 2 with Stafford. So I'm going to say the Rams win it next year.
Rams win the division, no doubt about it. Devontae Adams staying put to pair up there with none other than Puka. Looking at Seattle, we don't even know about Kenneth Walker at this point. We don't know about all of the reinforcements to be brought back there in the Pacific Northwest. LA's all in, as you said.
By the way, I saw something the other day, it was very specific, the language that Adam Schefter used on his report for Kenneth Walker. They will not franchise tag Kenneth Walker. There's also something called the transition tag, which they could use, and it's like $11 million. I wonder if that's what we see them do, or that Yeah, they didn't franchise tag him, but they did basically the exact same thing by placing this transition tag on him. Believe it or not, from C Murder from Imperial, the Chiefs will draft a wide receiver at number 9 overall and sign Breece Hall in free agency. I'll believe the first part. I will not believe that they sign Breece Hall. I think they will go with somebody a little cheaper. I could see them getting like Travis Etienne, that level of player in free agency. So I'll say not, but it's just the second part that I'm disagreeing with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can definitely see where they take a receiver in the first round, especially since Rice has got his issues, and we'll see if he's even a Chief by the time we get to that point. I agree with you. They're not going to go out and sign Breece Hall because he's going to be one of those more expensive running backs. They've got limited cap space when we get to that point in the offseason, so they're going to have to do more of the quote-unquote bargain bin shopping when it comes to the running back room.
Yeah, it's enticing to think about Hall at Arrowhead. I don't think that comes to pass, however, and because Jeremiah Love is going to go before number 9 overall, the Chiefs will indeed select a receiver in that spot.
He's Bradford Bruns. That is Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're going to give you a chance to score a pair of tickets to see Zach Brown on Saturday, March the 7th at the Dome, and we'll at the Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
This Saturday morning, it's a college basketball doubleheader. Game 1, St. John's and Creighton. Game 2, Houston and Arizona. Coverage starts at 10:30. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK, and it's time to get in on all of the action over on the Underdog app. You can do so today here in the state of Missouri because with Underdog, they have all of the action for the NBA, for college basketball. I had something down yesterday for the Mizzou game, was really close to hitting that. Mark Mitchell, come on, need a little bit more for you, buddy. But I'm getting back in on the action for the Olympics. Tomorrow, Team USA versus Slovakia. I'm going to take Dalibor Dvorsky to record a point. I will also take Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk, getting all St. Louis side of things here, both of them to score a goal. Put that together with a 40% hockey boost. It is a 11-1 play over on Underdog. You can get in on the action as well. Download the app today. Use our promo code BKO. You'll score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog. Make plays. Win money. Must be 18 or older. Present in Missouri. Terms to apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms. _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.inspeakgambling.org.
ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to the 2026 State Farm Missouri Valley Conference Men's Basketball Tournament, hitting the court at Enterprise Center March 5th through the 8th. March begins here with the Arch Madness of the annual MVC Tournament, featuring an 11-team field. All session and single session tickets are on sale now.
Get all the details and enter to win free tickets for Arch Madness now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
I should clarify, I'm an idiot. That's not surprising to anybody listening. 101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan, who's a very different person than Zach Brown. So Zach Bryan is the individual that you can win tickets to see right now here on 101 ESPN. That concert is coming up on March the 7th at the Dome. Find all ticket details and a bonus chance to win free tickets to Zach Bryan right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 ESPN mobile app, which is powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. If you want to see Zach Bryan in concert coming up on March the 7th, all you have to do is be texter number 101 with the correct answer to the following question, and you'll be able to see Zach Bryan coming up on March the 7th. Earlier today, we mentioned there was a story down in Australia where somebody went to a restaurant and they decided to put something on their plate to try to get out of their $600 bill. What was it that they put onto their plate? If you have the correct answer in your texter number 101, you're going home with a chance to win that pair of tickets to see Zach Bryan coming up on March the 7th.
How could you confuse the two? Like, Zach Brown doesn't sing Something in the Orange.
No.
He doesn't sing about plastic cigarettes.
I actually like Zach Brown. So maybe that's my problem, is I am a fan of Zach Brown. I can honestly
know
tell
nothing
you,
about Zach Bryan?
I don't know a ton about Zach Bryan, but I'm sure it'll be a great concert for whoever wins those tickets to see him in concert coming up on March the 7th.
I'm not going to lie. I looked up Zach Bryan's top 20 songs thinking, boy, I'm going to make fun of BK by pointing out one that I know. I don't know any of them.
I'm sure it's great.
So I can't even do that. I know a bunch of Zach Brown because I'm with you. I'm a big Zach Brown fan.
All right, so to finish out the show today, big story last night was Mizzou. They get the win, and it doesn't matter how it happened. They got the win against Vanderbilt. Yeah, they were up by 21 and ultimately won by 1 in the second half. T-Bone, what did you take away from it? What did we learn about Mizzou yesterday in this game against Vanderbilt?
It really puts the fact that, did you learn anything about them specifically? For me, no, right? Because they've just been so inconsistent all season long to where even watching that game for the first 30 minutes, I texted you in our group chat and said, this team has to be infuriating because when they play well, they look great. And then BK went for a run and they nearly blew the game and nearly lost that game to Vanderbilt. To me, it was they just really made sure they put this in their hands. They now really control their destiny to where going into yesterday, I thought they were going to lose this game, and they were still going to have to somehow pick up probably about 3 wins, and that meant they were going to have to get an upset somewhere along the way while also taking care of business at Oklahoma and at Mississippi State. Well, they've got the upset now. They pulled off the upset on their home floor last night. Now it's a matter of taking care of business in those 2 road games, and if you can pull off one more upset along the way, it's more of just a cherry on top to what should be a tournament resume.
Yeah, last night reinforced for me that this truly is a resilient bunch, and that does count for something, and perhaps also that what we saw, what we had to sit through and endure on Saturday at Mizzou Arena against Texas, maybe that was the anomaly relative to the past couple of weeks, because you go back, those 2 previous road games, obviously, guys, when you're talking about number 1, you hammered South Carolina, which is exactly what you're going to have to do against Mississippi State, against Oklahoma, if you're a Tigers enthusiast down the stretch here at the end of the regular season. And then you followed that up with a really great performance in knocking off Texas A&M. Texas was the outlier, or so you think, because based on what we saw in the first half, really with the exception of that 8 to 10 minute stretch, and this happens basically game in and game out, Tigers have been super impressive, especially BK, as you noted, there in Columbia. It's a different team under Gates at the Zoo.
It's a different team when T.O. Barrett plays the way that he did last night. Yeah. That's the biggest change to me, and it's going to be the thing that has to continue. If this team is going to make it to the NCAA tournament, Mark Mitchell has to keep being the guy that's super efficient offensively. You expect that. That's not a surprise. You expect to see Jaden Stone putting up some points. Trent Pierce has to keep hitting his open shots. Those are givens. Like that's the necessity the rest of the way. The thing that has changed from the beginning of the season to where we are today is the importance of T.O. Barrett in this lineup. He is critical to what they are trying to do. He's very good at driving to the lane with a plan, either going up to take a shot, which is something that you didn't see a lot when Anthony Robinson was the starting point guard, or finding a way to kick it out to somebody that's wide open. He did that a couple of times with Trent Pierce, found a couple of open drives to the lane as well. He's just really good at distributing the ball. So T.O. Barrett, his importance, that's the thing that has changed the most. The biggest difference between their loss against Texas and their win against Vanderbilt was his performance. He looked more like he did against Texas A&M, and when he plays that way, it opens everything else up for what Missouri's trying to do offensively. If he continues doing that, they're going to make the tournament. If he can't, then you'll see them probably drop most of these games down the stretch, and they will end up missing the NCAA tournament this time around. If you guys missed our full thoughts on Mizzou, Illinois with the big win last night as well, unbelievable, historic offensive performance by them. Also gave you our thoughts on Chaim Bloom, some of his comments from earlier today on TMA. We were joined by Joey Vitale. We were joined by Jeremy Rutherford. We played Beat the Blues. We did a terrible rendition of Believe It or Not. You can find all of that after the show today on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. And the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up on the Fast Lane today, they will have Jim Montgomery at 4:30, so stay tuned for that. TMA, final day tomorrow from down in Jupiter. They'll go up until 10 o'clock. We will be on an hour early tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m. For T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 10 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. And the latest episode has us turning our attention towards a period of history that barely needs exaggeration. The earliest days of the automobile. It's incredible how history itself can feel unbelievable once you strip away the myths and look at what actually happened. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we dig in on the chaotic, experimental era of the invention of the car.